Chapter 85. Last-minute mission? The system's voice was still echoing in Bufong's mind. He had a slightly astonished expression on his face. Why did the last-minute mission come so quickly this time? He had only just leveled up and a mission had already appeared. Carrying out the first ingredient hunt. There was only one day to prepare. Bufong frowned. Wasn't one day a little too rushed? System, the purpose of capturing ingredients is to teleport me to the wildlands, right? Then what about my store? Is it not open for business? Bufong doubtfully asked. The host has a time limit of 2 days to capture ingredients. If the host is unable to capture a suitable ingredient within 2 days, the host will be deemed to have failed the last-minute mission, and 10% of the crystal's origin energy conversion rate will be deducted as punishment. During the 2 days of capturing ingredients, the store will be temporarily closed for business, the system said in its usual aloof tone. Bufong nodded. He had gained a better understanding of this last-minute mission. However, he was becoming more and more nervous. If he failed, 10% of the origin energy conversion rate would be deducted. This was practically gouging out the flesh in Bufong's heart. The origin energy conversion rate was extremely important for Bufong to level up. It was not easy for him to raise it to 50%. If 10% was deducted because of a mission failure, then Bufong could only go to the toilet and cry. After yawning, Bufong returned to his room and lay on his bed. Not long after, the sound of rhythmic breathing could be heard. The Crown Prince's palace. The Crown Prince, Ji Qinggan, had a gloomy expression as he tightly clenched his fists. His fingernails were almost digging into the flesh of his palms. It was obvious how angry the Crown Prince was at this moment. Ji Qingyu, you actually dared to collude with a foreign sect. You're courting death. Ji Qinggan's face was ashen. As he looked at Shusher's withered corpse in the main hall, his eyes were filled with unconcealable sorrow. Shusher had been with him for many years and had always been his most capable subordinate. Now, he was brutally murdered by Ji Qingyu. Even though he did not have any evidence to prove that King Yu was colluding with sects from outside the region, anyone with a discerning eye would know that King Yu was the only one who would go and ruin the soup at that time. Ji Qingyu, oh Ji Qingyu, you claim to be meticulous in your calculations, but this time, you still made a big mistake. Even I could guess that you colluded with the sects from the outer domain. With Father's wisdom, how could he not know? Do you really think that Imperial Father is senile? A mocking smile suddenly appeared on the Crown Prince's gloomy face, and the pleasure in his eyes became even more intense. Just as I said, you're courting death. The Crown Prince's cold laughter echoed throughout the Crown Prince Palace. It was filled with suppressed anger and killing intent. King Yu's manner. King Yu was sitting on a sandalwood chair with one of his legs crossed. His slender palm lightly patted on his knee as he calmly gazed into the distance. His expression was very calm, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. However, it was precisely this calmness that made others feel even more terrified. At the entrance, a hunched figure trembled as he walked in. His body was trembling as if he was on the verge of collapsing, as if a gust of wind could knock him over. Han Xinyan's aura was extremely dispirited and had almost fallen to the level of a 5th-grade battle king. It was obvious that the secret technique he used to escape this time had greatly injured his body. This old man greets King Yu. Han Xinyan seemed to have become even skinnier, to the point that he was practically a bag of bones. The 2 lumps of spirit fire in his eye sockets had also become extremely dim. TSK, TSK, TSK. It seems like our soul sect's head elder's injuries aren't light. It's as if I could crush his bones with a single finger. The corner of King Yu's mouth curled up as he playfully looked at Han Xinyun, who was below the steps. He raised a finger and lightly gestured. The spirit fire in Han Xinyun's eye sockets trembled and his body slightly tensed up. A faint layer of pitch black, true energy hovered around his body. What is the meaning of this, King Yu? Even though this old man is heavily injured, I've already perfectly completed my mission. King Yu wouldn't go so far as to burn the bridge after crossing it, right? King Yu gave him a glance and simply said, "That's right. You've completed your mission, but you've also left me with a big problem. Don't you know? I only needed you to destroy that sage herb phoenix chicken soup. After you killed the crown prince's men, destroy their corpses and don't leave behind any traces. However, why did you provoke that mysterious storm? King Yu's tone suddenly became cold. He stood up from his chair, and his tall and straight figure suddenly emitted an oppressive aura. This was the oppressive aura of a person of high status, as it pressed toward Han Qingyun. Han Qingyun inwardly sighed. King Yu was indeed King Yu, as expected of Emperor Chongfeng's son. Even though his strength was inferior to his, the oppressive aura he gave off was not the slightest bit weaker. However, Han Qingyun was actually not too worried. King Yu might not dare to shed all pretenses of cordiality with his soul sect, so King Yu might not dare to kill him. As expected, King Yu's oppressive aura quickly dissipated as he indifferently glanced at Han Qingyun. I'll let you off this time. As the saying goes, things don't happen more than 3 times. If you mess up the next mission, it won't be as simple as getting sent back to the soul sect. King Yu stood with his hands behind his back as he indifferently said. A wave of true energy coiled around his body, and it felt as if even the air was about to collapse. Han Qingyun took a deep breath. King Yu's cultivation level had already reached the peak of 5th grade Battle King, and was only a step away from reaching 6th grade Battle Emperor. Han Qingyun retreated, and King Yu was the only one left in the main hall. He raised his hand, and a ball of true energy hovered in the air. Then he abruptly crushed it. My dear elder brother, you must be feeling pleased with yourself for discovering my weakness right now. However, so what? If Father really wants to execute me, then, as his son, I can only resist. As Xiao Ming walked out of the gate of heavenly mystery, he turned around to glance at the majestic main hall and helplessly sighed. Even someone as wild and unruly as Emperor Chongfeng was defeated by time in the end. After waging war against the sects for over 100 years, his own son ended up colluding with the sects to crush his last hope of surviving. It was truly ironic. Without becoming a supreme being, one is still immortal. Xiao Ming had a solemn expression on his face as his blade-like eyebrows tightly knitted together. With a light sigh, he flicked his sleeves and left. Within the main hall, the elderly emperor was constantly coughing as he sat on the dragon throne. His aura was becoming increasingly dispirited, and there seemed to be an aura of death on his face. Lien Fu's face was filled with worry as he looked at the emperor. His face was also filled with sorrow. Your Majesty, why don't this old servant call the imperial physician over to take a look? Lien Fu asked. The emperor waved his hand. Even his gaze was a little turbid, but his domineering aura did not diminish in the slightest. My lifelong wish is to wipe out the sects and restore peace to the empire. The existence of the sects is ultimately a hidden danger, the emperor said in a hoarse voice. There was no joy or sorrow in his tone. Now, my good son is actually colluding with the sects for the sake of the throne. Isn't this extremely ironic? My old face feels like it's on fire. Lien Fu did not say anything. He respectfully stood to the side with a solemn expression. The emperor shakily stood up and chuckled. His hoarse laughter echoed within the main hall of the imperial palace. I am Emperor Chongfeng, an emperor who wiped out hundreds of sections. Even if I am past my prime, I cannot allow my own son to slap me in the face like this. As a son, he should show his father the respect he deserves. He will understand very soon. His calm voice contained a hint of arrogance and confidence as it echoed within the main hall before gradually dissipating. Lien Fu's expression became even more respectful as he bowed and watched the emperor's disappearing figure. The next day, early morning, Bufang was open for business as usual. However, he had to inform Xiaoyi that he would be suspending business for 2 days. This was to prevent her from foolishly coming over and getting the door slammed in her face. Fatty Jean and the others arrived in a grandiose manner, causing the quiet store to become a little livelier. Fatty Jean's eyes were sharp, and when he discovered the new dish, red braised meat, his eyes immediately lit up. Owner Boo, this new dish is a little expensive. It actually costs 100 crystals. This is really not cheap. The price of the red braised meat slightly dampened Fatty Jin's enthusiasm. After all, even though he was a nouveau riche, even a nouveau riche would feel the pinch if he had to pay a few hundred crystals a day. The new dish won't disappoint you. Trust me, Bufang expressionlessly said. Fatty Jean squinted at Bufang for a long time before finally slamming the table and ordering the red braised meat. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up as he turned around and entered the kitchen. When he carried the fragrant red braised meat out of the kitchen, Xiaoyi had already arrived at the store. At the same time, an old and familiar figure slowly stepped into the store. "Owner Bu, the words on your board are not as good as mine," the old man said with a chuckle. Chapter 86. The elder who stepped into the store was none other than the current emperor, Ji Chongfeng. Ji Chongfeng's complexion was slightly pale, and he looked extremely frail. He was like an old man with one foot in the grave and completely lacked the domineering aura of an emperor. The words on the signboard hanging at the entrance seemed to have been carved out of a mold. "It lacks spirit energy and is extremely awkward. Even though it looks good, it can't stand up to my calligraphy." The emperor clasped his hands behind his back and said to Bufang with a chuckle. Bufang raised his eyebrows. It wasn't strange for the emperor to come to his store, but for him to come so early was out of his expectations. The signboard at the entrance was provided by the system. Back then, Bufang rejected the emperor's nomination because the system said it could provide it. Now that he looked at it, it didn't seem like much. "System, the emperor said that the words on the signboard you obtained are poorly written," Bufang said to the system. The reply he got was a moment of silence. Then, the system's solemn voice rang out. The words on the signboard were copied from the template of the number 1 calligrapher in the Light Wind Empire. There are no problems. As for the lack of spirit energy, the system is unable to provide an answer. Bufang nodded. The signboard obtained by the system was definitely not an ordinary item. However, perhaps because the words were copied, it was normal for it to lack spirit energy. "Your Majesty, what do you want to eat today?" Bufang expressionlessly asked, no longer thinking about these questions. The emperor found a table and sat down. He waved his hand and said, "There's no hurry. I have some doubts that I need you to answer." What doubts?" Bufang calmly asked. "If I don't ask these questions now, I'm afraid I won't have a chance to." The emperor's body slightly trembled. He lightly coughed and then raised his head. His cloudy eyes solemnly looked at Bufang and said, "You have a supreme spirit beast and a puppet comparable to a 7th-grade battle saint. You can also cook dishes filled with spirit energy. Owner Bu, who exactly are you? What is your purpose for staying in the imperial city of my Light Wind Empire?" Bufang raised his eyebrows slightly and looked calmly at the emperor. Their gazes collided silently in the air. After a long time, Bufang said expressionlessly, "I don't have any motives. I just want to open a small restaurant." The emperor's face stiffened. He shook his head with a bitter smile. "Impossible. The strength of your store is already comparable to the entire Light Wind Empire. How could you open a store just for the sake of opening a store? I won't force you to tell me if you don't want to, but I hope you can answer my last question properly." "Go ahead," Bufang said. "You're not a member of a sect, right? You wouldn't do anything that would threaten the empire, would you?" The emperor covered his chest, coughed lightly, and raised his head to ask. This was the main reason why he had come today. As an emperor, even if he was about to decay, he could not tolerate an uncontrollable variable in his empire. However, with the existence of a supreme spirit beast, the emperor did not have the slightest confidence that he could destroy the store. Therefore, he could only settle for the next best thing, which was to clarify the purpose of the store's existence in order to feel at ease. However, in reality, Bufang only wanted to open a store in the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire. He wanted to keep a low profile and earn crystals. He wanted to raise his cultivation level and become the god of cooking that stood at the top of the food chain in the fantasy world. His goal was that simple. "Don't worry, it won't happen," Bufang solemnly replied to the emperor as the corners of his mouth twitched, revealing a stiff smile. The emperor was startled. Then, a smile appeared on his wrinkled face, which then turned into a hearty laugh. Owner Boo, with your words, I feel much more at ease. I'm very happy today. Give me a portion of all the dishes. This might be the last time I eat at Owner Boo's place. After the emperor finished laughing, he took a deep breath and clapped his hands. Outside the door, Lien Fu, who was wearing an embroidered robe, walked in with his thumb and middle finger pinched. He respectfully stood behind the emperor with a worried look in his eyes. Bu Fong nodded his head and then stepped into the kitchen. Not long after, a rich aroma wafted out from the kitchen. The aroma caused the emperor to narrow his eyes and become slightly intoxicated. After living for so many years and eating so many delicacies, it's still Owner Boo's dishes that are the most intoxicating. Unfortunately, I only met Owner Boo in my final moments. I don't know if this is a punishment or a reward from the heavens, the emperor softly muttered. Xiaoyi obediently carried the dishes up and placed them in front of the emperor. The emperor chuckled as he rubbed Xiaoyi's head with a doting look on his face. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Lien Fu followed behind the emperor and left. Bu Fong stood at the entrance and softly sighed as he looked at the emperor's aged back. Xiaoyi, you don't have to come to the store for the next 2 days. I need to go out and take care of some matters, so I have to suspend business for 2 days. After today's opening hours, Bu Fong expressionlessly patted Ouyang Xiaoyi's head and said, Smelly boss, you're going to look for trouble at the Immortal Phoenix restaurant again? Ouyang Xiaoyi excitedly raised her head. Her bright eyes were filled with excitement. Bu Fong's expression slightly darkened. Who told you that I'm going to look for trouble just because I'm temporarily suspending business? I have important matters to take care of in the next 2 days. Sigh. All right then. If Smelly Boss is going to look for trouble at the Immortal Phoenix restaurant again, you must call me along. You were simply too cool when you slapped the owner of the Immortal Phoenix restaurant in the face. Ouyang Xiaoyi narrowed her crescent moon-like eyes as she waved her little fist and said with a smile, I was merely stating the truth. There's no such thing as slapping the owner of the Immortal Phoenix restaurant in the face. Just nice. You can take advantage of these 2 days to properly cultivate. I hope that your strength will increase when you return. The dishes in the future will have a higher requirement for your strength, Bu Fong said. When the topic of cultivation was brought up, Ouyang Xiaoyi's eyes lit up. She seemed to be showing off as she stretched out her fair and tender palm and said, Smelly boss, look, my cultivation has already reached the intermediate stage of 3rd grade battle maniac. Bu Fong glanced at Ouyang Xiaoyi's smug expression and expressionlessly said, That fast? Even after eating so many dishes filled with spirit energy in the store, your cultivation speed is still so slow. This means that you've been slacking off. Look at me. I'm already a 4th grade battle spirit. Smelly boss, you're really annoying. Forget it. I'm going back to the mansion, humph. Ouyang Xiaoyi snappily snorted and angrily left the store. After Ouyang Xiaoyi left, Bu Fong squatted in front of Blackie and stroked its smooth and untainted fur. He simply said, Lazy dog, I won't be in the store for the next 2 days. You should take care of your own meals. Blackie lazily opened its doggy eyes. When it heard Bu Fong's words, it immediately snorted and rolled its doggy eyes. Bu Fong returned to the store and closed the door. Then, he took out a wooden board with the words, Business Suspended, written on it, and hung it on the door before returning to the kitchen. System, I have to find the ingredients myself in the wildlands. Are you going to provide seasoning ingredients? Bu Fong asked. No, the system coldly replied. Bu Fong seemed to have already expected the system's answer. He softly replied with an "oh." Then, he found a piece of cloth and threw the salt, soy sauce, pepper, and other ingredients in the kitchen into it. At the same time, he picked up a large wok filled with kitchen knives, spatulas, and the like. He was going to pack it up as well. The system. The purpose of heading to the wildlands is to capture ingredients, not to have a picnic. The host, please determine the main content of the mission. Seasoning ingredients can be brought along, but cooking utensils, other than the God of Cooking set, cannot be brought along, the system solemnly said. Bu Fong, who was excitedly packing, suddenly froze. Then, He expressionlessly sighed. Don't I have to cook the ingredients after capturing them? Without cooking utensils, how can I bring out the deliciousness of the ingredients to the fullest? This time, the system was too lazy to answer Bu Fang's question. In the end, Bu Fang only stuffed a few seasoning ingredients into his bag. Then, he returned to his room to catch up on his sleep. On the second day, when the morning star had just jumped out of the horizon and released its first ray of light, Bu Fang was woken up by the system's beep. Host, please pay attention. The teleportation array will open in 5 minutes. Please prepare for the teleportation. Bu Fang was startled. He raised his head and discovered that a speck of light had suddenly appeared above his head. That speck of light was rapidly drawing a mysterious magic array. Chapter 87. The Hidden Dragon Continent was vast and boundless. There were mountains that towered into the clouds, mountains that stretched for tens of thousands of miles, vast oceans, and great swamps that were shrouded in miasma. The Wildlands was located outside the borders of the light wind empire of the Hidden Dragon Continent. It was a vast and desolate plain. There were large forests and large lakes on the plain. However, these were not the main points. The reason why the Wildlands was called the Wildlands was because there were countless spirit beasts living on this vast plain. Some of these spirit beasts were strong, some were weak, and they were unevenly matched. The Wildlands was divided into 3 layers. They were like 3 large circles circling around the periphery, the inner layer, and the center. The strength of the spirit beasts distributed in each area was different. The closer one was to the center, the stronger the spirit beasts. It was rumored that there were even 9th grade supreme beasts in the center of the Wildlands. Therefore, the center of the Wildlands was also known as the Forbidden Zone for humans. Even a 7th grade battle saint would not have the guts to set foot there. In front of a 9th grade supreme beast, a human 7th grade battle saint was as weak as an ant. The periphery of the Wildlands. A series of explosions rang out and a hurricane suddenly howled, causing the surrounding trees to bend continuously. 3 figures sped through the forest at a rapid speed. Tyrannical true energy continuously spread out. Amidst the whistling sounds, 2 figures sped out and surrounded the spirit beast in front of them. Their target was the spirit beast that was constantly escaping. The spirit beast was extremely fast, and the aura on its body was also incomparably powerful. It was actually a 6th grade spirit beast. Lightning constantly flickered on its body and crackled as it sped through the air. It even caused the air to emit a burning smell. Second brother, the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's speed has slowed down. Don't let it escape. A clear and melodious shout rang out. Then, a stream of true energy shot out and smashed toward the Thunderfire Spirit Pig that was galloping ahead. With a roar, the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's speed became even faster. It directly crashed into a big tree and broke it. Lightning jumped out and directly burned the broken tree. A green-robed man with long, flowing hair stood on a flying sword and whistled over. He looked at the Thunderfire Spirit Pig in the distance with a faint smile and said, "Junior sister, don't worry. Although this Thunderfire Spirit Pig is a rank 6 spirit beast, its strength lies in its defense. Its combat strength, speed, and endurance are both very weak. It will obediently stop very soon." Beside the green-robed man, there was a cute girl blinking her big eyes, excitedly staring at the Thunderfire Spirit Pig. There was a smile on her face, and there were 2 cute dimples at the corners of her mouth. Suddenly, the green-robed man was taken aback and looked into the distance in confusion. The Thunderfire Spirit Pig's galloping figure suddenly came to a halt. In front of the Spirit Pig, the void suddenly distorted, and then burst forth into a tornado that soared into the sky. Specks of light flickered within the tornado. Bang! With a loud explosion, the tornado suddenly dispersed. A tall and slender figure appeared in the magic array formed by the specks of light. The Thunderfire Spirit Pig angrily roared and continued to charge toward the slender figure that suddenly appeared. After all, it was a rank 6 spirit beast. Even if its combat strength was not strong, the impact of such a charge was still very considerable. Hmm? What the hell is that? The slender figure did not seem to have recovered. He raised his head and noticed a pig ferociously charging toward him. He immediately raised his eyebrows and indifferently spat out a sentence. Be careful. Even though the green-robed man did not know why the slender young man had appeared, he still kindly warned him. The dimpled girl following behind the green-robed man was also frightened to the point that her beautiful face turned pale. She covered her eyes with her small hands and did not dare to watch the tragic scene that was about to unfold. The green-robed man also did not expect that someone would suddenly appear in front of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig. Even though the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's combat strength was not strong, its defense was extremely terrifying. Its skin was coarse and its flesh was thick. Even a battle emperor would vomit blood from the impact, and an average person would be directly trampled into minced meat. However, the scene that happened in the next moment caused the green-robed man's expression to suddenly stiffen. His eyes burst forth with a look of disbelief. Facing the Thunderfire Spirit Pig that was charging toward him, the young man did not seem to be afraid at all. The expression on his face did not change, and his eyes were as calm as water. An unassuming kitchen knife appeared in the young man's hand. Damn! Facing the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's charge, why the hell did you take out a kitchen knife? This was the green-robed man's first thought when he saw the kitchen knife. However, what happened was completely out of his expectations. The ferocious Thunderfire Spirit Pig did not slow down at all. As for the young man who was holding the unassuming kitchen knife, his true energy burst forth, and the kitchen knife actually burst forth with boundless golden light. The green-robed man was unable to open his eyes due to the dazzling golden light. When the gold light dissipated, everything returned to a state of tranquility. The green-robed man watched the scene on the field, and his mouth slightly opened. His face was filled with shock and seriousness. The young girl beside him also let out a delicate cry as her eyes widened even more. The Thunderfire Spirit Pig was actually cleaved into two halves. Its huge body fell onto the ground, and fresh blood splattered all over the ground. Faint lightning arcs were still pulsating within the blood. The young man put away the unassuming kitchen knife and carried a bag on his back. He walked toward the Thunderfire Spirit Pig and crouched down, as if he was examining the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's carcass. The green-robed man and the young girl hurriedly descended and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Killing the Thunderfire Spirit Pig, which was known for its defensive power, with a single slash, there was no doubt that the person in front of them was definitely a powerful warrior. He might even be a 7th-grade battle saint. Say, Senior, you have great skills. Killing the Thunderfire Spirit Pig with a single slash, truly domineering. The green-robed man had a smile on his face as he said to the young man who was examining the Thunderfire Spirit Pig's carcass. The young man expressionlessly raised his head and glanced at the green-robed man and the young girl with dimples behind him. He lightly nodded his head and stood up. The meat of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig contains lightning arcs and fire bursts. It can be considered a pretty good ingredient. Unfortunately, it's still a little lacking compared to the ingredient that I'm looking for, the young man muttered. However, his words were like a thunderclap in the green-robed man's ears. Damn, he's indeed an expert. Even the 6th-grade Thunderfire Spirit Pig did not catch his eye. Could it be that he came for a 7th-grade spirit beast? What are your names? Why are you here? The young man asked the green-robed man with an expressionless face. Senior, I am Tang Yin, a disciple of the Celestial Arcanum sect. This is my junior sister, Lu Xiao. May I ask for Senior's name? Tang Yin respectfully said, even though he had some doubts in his heart, because he was observing the young man from a close distance. He noticed that the true energy fluctuations on the young man's body were not strong. It was roughly around the level of a 4th-grade battle spirit. A 4th-grade battle spirit. How could someone with this level of cultivation dare to appear in the wildlands? It was obvious that the young man in front of him, who was able to kill a 6th-grade spirit beast with a kitchen knife, was definitely not a 4th-grade battle spirit. Oh, my name is Bufong. I'm a chef. I come from, the Light Wind Empire. Bufang also earnestly introduced himself. Chef. You King introduced yourself as a chef? A strange expression appeared on Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao's faces. Fine. The hobbies of the strong were indeed hard to guess. Just like their master, the third elder of the Celestial Arcanum sect, didn't he also like to spend his days in the kitchen studying recipes? Senior, I wonder if you can sell this Thunderfire Spirit Pig to me. The reason why we came to the Wildlands to train is for this Thunderfire Spirit Pig. Tang Yin cupped his hands toward Bufang and said. Bufang was startled for a moment. He glanced at the two halves of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig on the ground and curled up the corners of his mouth. I'll give it to you guys. Since I have no use for this ingredient, the meat of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig should have no other use besides cooking. Could it be that you guys are chefs as well? Tang Yin's pupils slightly constricted as a sense of admiration suddenly welled up in his heart. As expected of a senior, he could actually see through the reason why they were collecting the Thunderfire Spirit Pig. That's right. This time, they were here to collect ingredients for their master. Regardless of whether you guys are chefs or not, I just happen to have a question for you. Bufang raised his gaze and interrupted Tang Yin, who was about to speak, and simply said, Do you guys know if there are any ingredients that are of a higher grade than this Thunderfire Spirit Pig? Chapter 88. Bufang's question was somewhat out of Tang Yin's expectations. That was because Bufang's question did not have any common sense. The Thunderfire Spirit Pig was a 6th grade spirit beast. It was already considered the top-notch spirit beast in the outskirts of the Wildlands. Relatively speaking, it was also the highest grade ingredient. If they wanted to find and capture an ingredient of higher quality than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig, they could only continue forward and step into the inner layer of the Wildlands. The inner layer of the Wildlands was an extremely dangerous place for them. Tang Yin was a 6th grade battle emperor, while Lu Xiaoxiao was only a 5th grade battle king. If they were to step into the inner layer with their current strength, once they encountered a powerful spirit beast, their chances of survival would be extremely slim. That was because in the inner layer, the weakest spirit beast was at the 6th grade. 7th grade, and even 8th grade spirit beasts could occasionally be encountered. When Bufang saw the change in Tang Yin's expression, his heart slightly shook. It was obvious that Tang Yin knew where to find ingredients of higher quality. Tell me the information about the ingredient, or bring me there. I can cook for you guys for free, Bufang seriously said. The corners of Tang Yin's mouth twitched. He did not take it seriously. If it was not for the might of Bufang killing the Thunderfire Spirit Pig with a single slash, he would have already dragged Lu Xiaoxiao away. Bringing Bufang to the inner layer was risking his life. Could the food he cooked be more precious than his life? Just as Tang Yin was hesitating, Lu Xiaoxiao glanced at her senior brother and suddenly said, Second brother, isn't there a spirit beast in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix? Master told us to test it out if we have the ability. If we don't, we should choose the Thunderfire Spirit Pig. That spirit beast should be an ingredient of a higher grade than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig, right? Lu Xiaoxiao's eyes curved and charming dimples appeared on the corners of her mouth. Her smile was extremely cute. Tang Yin frowned, and his gaze fell on his junior sister. He did not expect Lu Xiaoxiao to mention the spirit beast in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix at this time. A spirit beast of a higher grade than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig? Sure, bring me there, Bufang expressionlessly said. Tang Yin wanted to explain something, but just as the words were about to leave his mouth, Lu Xiaoxiao hugged his arm and pulled him forward. Second brother, Senior is so strong. He can help us kill that spirit beast. Without that spirit beast, we will be able to harvest the Phoenix Blood Herb in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. This way, we can complete Master's task. Lu Xiaoxiao whispered to Tang Yin, Isn't this using Senior? This won't do. We have to clearly explain this to Senior. Tang Yin frowned and unhappily glanced at his mischievous junior sister. Second brother, what if we tell the truth and Senior refuses to go? Won't we fail our mission then? In any case, Senior is also looking for a high-grade ingredient. That spirit beast is indeed of a higher grade than the Thunderfire spirit pig. Lu Xiaoxiao immediately became anxious as she pulled Tang Yin forward. Tang Yin was stunned as well. He could not help but feel a little hesitant. In the end, he sighed and said, "When the time comes, we'll have to do our best to help you get rid of that spirit beast." "Yes, that's a must." When Lu Xiaoxiao heard Tang Yin agree, she immediately smiled happily as her charming dimples appeared once again. Bufang was naturally unaware of their conversation. He carried his backpack and followed behind the two of them. The corpse of the Thunderfire spirit pig had already been stored away by Tang Yin. He probably had a spatial spirit tool on him because he simply waved his hand at the spirit pig's corpse and stored it away. "Senior, the location of that spirit beast is in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. That valley might be quite a distance away from here. It seems like we'll have to travel through the night," Tang Yin said to Bufang. Bufang expressionlessly nodded. "It's fine as long as we can reach there by noon tomorrow." The system gave Bufang 2 days to gather ingredients. According to Tang Yin, Bufang was not in a hurry. Just like that, the three of them walked through the dense forest. This forest was extremely vast in the wildlands. From time to time, a few 3rd and 4th grade spirit beasts would appear. Tang Yin would directly kill these spirit beasts without needing Bufang to do anything. After walking for a while, the three of them finally walked out of the dense forest. Then, they were faced with a stone forest. Densely packed gravel was scattered all over this wasteland. After crossing this stone forest, we'll almost reach the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. "Senior, why don't we rest here for the night?" Tang Yin said to Bufang with a smile. Lu Xiaoxiao also hurriedly said, That's right. Senior, let's rest. I'm so tired. The wildlands at night is very dangerous. Even though Senior is powerful, for the sake of safety, let's rest for the night first and continue on our journey tomorrow." Bufang raised his head and looked at the dark sky. He nodded his head and said, "Then let's rest for the night. I promised that I would cook for you guys if I lead the way. First, bring me a piece of Thunderfire spirit pig spine meat." The three of them found a spot. It was quite tranquil under the cover of a large boulder. Bufang went into the forest and picked up some dry firewood. He said to Tang Yin, "You know how to start a fire, right?" Tang Yin was stunned for a moment. Senior couldn't really be planning to cook for them, right? He always thought that Bufang was only joking with them. He didn't expect that Bufang would actually make a move. Lu Xiaoxiao was also slightly stunned. Then, she couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. This Senior, could he really be a chef? He couldn't be an unreliable chef like her master, right? "Start a fire and give me the Thunderfire spirit pig's spine meat. I need to process it," Bufang expressionlessly said. Tang Yin hurriedly took out a piece of Thunderfire spirit pig's spine meat from his spatial spirit tool and handed it to Bufang. Bufang took the piece of spine meat and found a rock. He used true energy to clean the surface of the rock until it was spotless. Then he took out a gourd and poured out the alpine spring water prepared by the system to wash the Thunderfire spirit pig's spine meat. He washed away all the bloodstains and allowed the spirit energy of the spirit's spring water to seep into the surface of the pork. After the true energy enveloped the spirit pork and evaporated all the water stains on the surface, Bufang waved his hand, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. The pitch-black kitchen knife spun a few times in his palm. Then, under Bufang's control, it cut the spirit pork into 3 large chunks. Lu Xiaoxiao stared at Bufang with a dumbfounded expression. Her mind was replaying the scene of Bufang's gorgeous and dazzling knife skills. She was a little confused. Could it be that this Senior was really a professional chef? In the distance, Tang Yin had already started the fire. For a 6th grade battle emperor, starting a fire was really overkill. Bufang took out a tree branch. One end of the branch was sharpened by Bufang, and the branch was still emitting a strange fragrance. After skewering the pork chunks on the tree branch, Bufang set up a grill on top of the fire that Tang Yin had started. He placed the pork on top of the grill and slowly roasted it. 3 pieces of pork were skewered on the 3 tree branches and neatly placed on the grill to be roasted by the flames. "Senior, Your movements are really skillful, just like a chef, Tang Yin said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that Bufang was really planning to cook a delicacy for them. Bufang raised his head and gave him a glance. He simply said, "I am a chef." After saying that, Bufang took out bottles of seasoning ingredients from his bag. Salt, pepper, cumin powder, and so on. Looking at all these bottles and jars, Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao were completely speechless. "So you're really a chef?" Senior is indeed a senior. Coming to the wildlands is like having a picnic. Even the seasoning ingredients are so well prepared, Lu Xiaoxiao said with a dry laugh. This time, Bufang did not even raise his head. He simply said, "If it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't allowed to, I might have even brought pots and pans. When the time comes, I will be able to cook an even better delicacy. You guys are out of luck." Lu Xiaoxiao, Tang Yin. For a moment, they were somewhat speechless. The surroundings became quiet, and only the sound of the firewood burning under the flames could be heard. Amidst this terrifying silence, a rich, meaty aroma quickly lingered in the air. Chapter 89. The spine meat of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig was skewered on an unknown tree branch and was being roasted above the flames. As the temperature rose, the tree branch would emit an alluring aroma. The aroma was not like the aroma of meat, but more like the aroma of fresh fruits. It was bewitching. The pork gradually gained an alluring rosy color as it was being roasted by the flames. The oily juice quickly seeped out from the surface of the roasted meat, and faint lightning arcs constantly leaped on the surface of the roasted meat. Bufang skillfully rotated the roasted meat so that every part of it could receive heat evenly. This was a test of chef's ability to control the heat. Roasting meat looked simple, but there were many small tricks involved. The meat of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig was the meat of a 6th-grade spirit beast, so ordinary flames were naturally unable to roast it. Therefore, Bufang had to constantly inject his true energy into the flames. In fact, this could also be considered as a method of cooking with true energy. As the roasting time increased, a rich aroma of meat wafted out from the roasting rack and drifted into the stone forest. Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao swallowed their saliva at the same time. Their gazes involuntarily drifted toward the roasted meat. The roasted meat that was roasted by Bufang until it was incomparably rosy and was glistening with oily juice. It was as if it was emitting a great charm. "It smells really good." Tang Yin could not help but praise. The meat was mellow and not greasy. It was even mixed with a faint fruity aroma, giving people a feeling of being intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. Lu Xiaoxiao had been staring at the roasted meat for a long time, and her eyes could not tear away. They had been training in the Celestial Arcanum sect for many years and had never smelled such a rich aroma of meat. Within the sect, experts who had reached the 5th-grade Battle King realm would usually choose to abstain from eating. Their need for food was already extremely small. Bufang expressionlessly rotated the roasted meat. When he saw the oily juice of the roasted meat start to drip down, he sprinkled some seasoning on it. The aroma of the meat immediately became even more rich and colorful. After removing 2 skewers of roasted meat, Bufang handed them to Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao, indicating that they could start tasting. "Bu's secret recipe barbecue, please enjoy," Bufang said expressionlessly. Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao were about to drool. Smelling the aroma of the barbecued meat at such a close distance stirred up the hunger in their stomachs. They couldn't wait to have a taste. "Thank you, Senior." Tang Yin still had a lot of self-control. After thanking Bufang, he narrowed his eyes and took a bite of the roasted meat. Although Lu Xiaoxiao was a woman, her table manners weren't as refined as Tang Yin's. When Tang Yin took the first bite, her mouth was already stuffed with roasted meat. "Oh, hot, hot." Lu Xiaoxiao's cheeks puffed up and her eyes widened. She grabbed the roasted meat tightly with one hand and fanned her cheeks with the other. Tang Yin took a bite of the roasted meat. The moment his teeth came into contact with the roasted meat, a rich aroma rushed into his mouth. The meat was surprisingly soft and tender. It wasn't as dry and hard as roasted meat should be. Once it entered his mouth, the oily juice seeped out and stained his lips. From afar, it looked like he had smeared a layer of lipstick. As the roasted meat was chewed in his mouth, the rich and oily roasted meat covered Tang Yin's tongue. A faint numbing sensation was emitted from the meat and stimulated his mouth. It gave him goosebumps all over his body. After swallowing the roasted meat, the numbing sensation flowed down his throat all the way to his stomach. It was as if his entire body was cleansed. It was so comfortable that he couldn't help but want to moan. Moan. How could there be such an unbelievable delicacy in this world? I didn't know that the meat of the Thunderfire Spirit Pig could actually be this delicious. Tang Yin almost had the urge to cry. This was the first time in his life that he had eaten a delicacy that moved him so much. Beside him, Lu Xiaoxiao was already unable to stop eating. The rims of her eyes were completely red. It was obvious that she was also moved by the delicacy. As the disciples of the Celestial Arcanum sect, the leader of the 10 great sects in the outer domain, they had to undergo arduous training since they were young. Their 3 meals a day were mostly porridge and steam buns. After eating this for more than 10 years, when their cultivation broke through to the 5th grade, most of them chose to abstain from eating. Therefore, they had no concept of delicacies at all. This was the first time they had eaten the roasted meat cooked by Bufang. For them, it was simply an indescribable shock. It was a delicacy that was able to enter their hearts. Bufang expressionlessly looked at the two of them, who simply couldn't stop eating. The corners of his mouth curled up. He also took the last skewer of roasted meat and began to savor it in a leisurely manner. As he ate, he was also trying to find the flaws in the roasted meat. Clap, clap, clap. The aroma of the roasted meat was blown by the wind and gradually spread to the surroundings. In this wildlands, the aroma of the roasted meat was simply a refreshing stream. It caused many spirit beasts to subconsciously follow the scent and approach it. On top of a craggy boulder, a cheetah-like demonic beast whose eyes were emitting a dark green radiance in the dark night stared malevolently in the direction of Bufang and the others. It was drooling ferociously. There were also the auras of a few powerful spirit beasts nearby that were rapidly approaching. Not only was the aroma of the roasted meat a type of temptation for humans, it was obviously a type of irresistible delicacy for spirit beasts as well. Tang Yin took a bite of the roasted meat and swallowed it with a slurping sound. He stood up with a face full of enjoyment. Senior's culinary skills are simply astonishing. Let me go and clean up these little things in the surroundings so that they don't affect Senior's mood. Tang Yin held the roasted meat in one hand and drew his longsword with the other. The sharp longsword emitted a cold glint that made one's scalp go numb. Bufang was expressionless as he ate his roasted meat and pondered about the flaws in it. Lu Xiaoxiao was also completely focused on dealing with the roasted meat. When Tang Yin realized that no one was responding to him, he suddenly felt very embarrassed. He grinned and tore a mouthful of roasted meat. With a chuckle, the true energy in his body suddenly burst forth and engulfed his body like a long dragon. Ha ha! In ancient times, there were chivalrous men who drank wine and slew demons. Now I, Tang Yin, eat meat and slaughter beasts. How delightful! Tang Yin's figure instantly charged into the midst of the numerous spirit beasts that were galloping toward him. These spirit beasts that were attracted by the aroma of the roasted meat were all around the 5th grade. They were all overlords of their own territories. If it wasn't for the temptation of the roasted meat, they probably wouldn't have left their own territories. As the sword flashed, Tang Yin wore a green robe. As his sleeves fluttered in the wind, he leisurely wandered among the numerous spirit beasts and occasionally tore a mouthful of roasted meat. He was killing to his heart's content and was extremely carefree. Of course, the scene of eating roasted meat while battling spirit beasts was a little weird. After the battle, Tang Yin returned with the roasted meat in one hand and the sword in the other. There were still traces of blood flowing on the ice-cold longsword, but Tang Yin's expression didn't change as he ate the roasted meat. His face was filled with an indescribable satisfaction that was mixed with a trace of disbelief and shock. "Senior, the spirit beasts have all been taken care of," Tang Yin said with a smile. Bufang nodded and placed the last piece of roasted meat into his mouth, slowly chewing it. "Senior, can this roasted meat of yours replenish spirit energy? I fought 4 5th-grade spirit beasts alone, but not only did I not feel like my true chi was being exhausted, it was even getting stronger the more I fought. My true chi was almost boiling." Tang Yin took a deep breath and asked solemnly. In the distance, Lu Xiaoxiao ate with a face full of enjoyment. She rubbed her bulging belly and exhaled a breath of hot air, intending to rest. However, in the next moment, her eyes widened in disbelief as she glanced at Tang Yin in astonishment. Then, she sat down cross-legged and rich, true energy surged out from her body. She had actually entered a state of cultivation. Here, as you can see, this roasted meat can provide you with enough true energy. Don't make a fuss. This is only an ordinary true energy delicacy. If you still want to taste this delicacy, you can go to the imperial city of the Light Wind Empire and look for Fong Fong's little store. Bufang simply said and conveniently advertised his store. Light Wind Empire, Fong Fong's little store. Tang Yin narrowed his eyes and solemnly nodded. A dish comparable to a 5th-grade elixir. Senior is indeed unfathomable. Then, after finishing the roasted meat, Tang Yin also sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Due to the system, the true energy within the delicacies was extracted by Bufang, so he found a place to sleep. The night passed uneventfully. At daybreak the next day, the 3 of them set off for the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. After passing through the stone forest, the scenery in front of them quickly changed. Verdant and lush, the gurgling of water and the incessant sound of a waterfall could be heard. The Valley of the Fallen Phoenix was right before their eyes. Chapter 90. Senior, this is the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix, Tang Yin said to Bufang as he stood on top of a boulder and pointed at the fairyland-like Valley of the Fallen Phoenix in the distance. The Valley of the Fallen Phoenix was located at the boundary between the outer and inner layers of the Savage Land. Once one passed through the stone forest, it would be like entering a fairyland. The valley was filled with rare and precious medicinal herbs. A rich medicinal fragrance was emitted from the valley and lingered in the air above the valley, almost forming a colorful curtain. "What a marvelous place!" Bufang exclaimed in admiration. Only such a beautiful scenery matched the fantasy world in Bufang's heart. After coming to the Hidden Dragon Continent for so long, this was the first time Bufang felt the wonders of a fantasy world. Didn't you guys say that there was a spirit beast of a higher grade than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig? Where is it? Bufang asked Tang Yin as his thoughts returned to the food after he finished admiring the beautiful scenery. "Senior, that spirit beast is hiding in this valley. We'll only be able to see it if we go in." Before Tang Yin could reply, Lu Xiaoxiao rushed to answer Bufang's question. Tang Yin glanced at his junior sister and slightly furrowed his eyebrows. He said to Bufang, "Senior, because of the special location of the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix, it is not safe inside. There might even be a 7th-grade spirit beast. Since the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix was located at the boundary between the outer and inner layers, it was not impossible for a 7th-grade spirit beast to appear there." "Oh, a 7th-grade spirit beast? That should be an ingredient of a higher grade than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig," Bufang lightly said. Tang Yin, a senior, was indeed a senior. To think that a 7th-grade spirit beast was merely an ingredient in his eyes. At this moment, Tang Yin's admiration for Bufang had reached the level of looking up at a high mountain. Even a 7th-grade battle saint would find it difficult to fight against a 7th-grade spirit beast. However, in the mouth of a senior, a 7th-grade spirit beast was merely food. How domineering! My senior is amazing. With Tang Yin leading the way, the 3 of them passed through the stone forest and stepped into the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. Lush greenery, the environment was tranquil, and the valley was overgrown with trees. At first glance, it was a stretch of greenery, but in the midst of this greenery, a few clusters of flowers could be seen, blooming beautifully in this winter. Although it was winter, the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix seemed to be a place of its own. There was no biting cold wind, nor was there any fluttering snow. Within the lush greenery, there was a warm and moist feeling that was incomparably comfortable. It was also Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao's first time stepping into the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix. Their eyes were filled with curiosity as they looked around. Second brother, look, this is butterfly leafgrass. It's a third-grade spirit herb. Lu Xiaoxiao's eyes were sharp. She saw a stalk of herb that was like a butterfly spreading its wings, and she immediately cried out in surprise. It was not only the butterfly leafgrass. In this valley, there were all kinds of precious herbs. At the very least, the herbs that Bufang used to cook the sage herb phoenix chicken soup could be seen everywhere. The rumbling sound of the waterfall resounded in their ears. As the three of them picked the herbs, they followed the small path and quickly arrived in front of the waterfall. Surging water vapor violently surged over, bringing with it a gale that whistled past their bodies. Their clothes were blown up by the gale that was mixed with the water vapor. Everyone narrowed their eyes and looked forward. Is it a sage herb? Bufang raised his eyebrows and looked toward a purple leaf at the side of the waterfall. Below the leaf was the sage herb. Yes, it is the fifth-grade spirit herb, the heavenly sage herb. I didn't expect that the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix would even have a sage herb. Tang Yin took a deep breath and said with some joy. Bufang nodded and walked forward. He would naturally not let go of a spirit herb like the sage herb, which was very familiar to him. There was no doubt that the sage herb was precious, especially since it was a rare delicacy. When Bufang was a few meters away from the heavenly sage herb, Bufang furrowed his eyebrows as he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Bufang's expression did not change. With a wave of his arm, the unassuming golden dragon bone kitchen knife immediately appeared in his hand, and he slashed at the figure that was rushing toward him. The figure that was rushing toward him froze the moment the golden dragon bone kitchen knife appeared. Then it was directly cut in half by Bufang's kitchen knife. Dark red blood splattered all over the ground. The two halves of the figure fell to the ground and violently twitched for a while. Tang Yin immediately sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw this scene. That was a fifth-grade spirit beast, the phantom lancehead viper. It was an extremely troublesome type of fifth-grade spirit beast. After killing a viper, Bufang twirled the kitchen knife in his hand. Not a single speck of dust or blood could be seen on it as it turned into a wisp of green smoke and returned to the icon on Bufang's wrist. He pulled out the sage herb. The plump sage herb was filled with rich spirit energy. Even though it was slightly inferior to the sage herb provided by the system, it was still much better than the one provided by the Crown Prince. System, are you not going to provide me with some sort of spatial storage function? You can't possibly expect me to hold these spirit herbs with my bare hands, right? When the time comes, the ingredient might be a huge monster. Even if I manage to capture it, I won't be able to transport it back, Bufang said to the system. The system did not immediately reply and remained silent for a while. Spatial bag function is being activated. Countdown, 3, 2, 1. Activation complete. The host can use the spatial bag function. The system's serious and solemn voice sounded out. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up. Then, with a thought, the sage herb in his hand was stored into the spatial bag. This spatial bag, opened by the system, was not small at all. It was roughly the size of the store. After storing the sage herb and some miscellaneous items into the spatial bag, Bufang's gaze once again landed on Tang Yin as he furrowed his brows. Where's the high-quality ingredient you mentioned? Bufang expressionlessly asked. Senior, don't be anxious. That spirit beast is in this valley. Tang Yin hurriedly said. He did not dare to anger Bufang. Along the way, the unfathomable feeling that Bufang gave him made him apprehensive. Second brother, look, is that Phoenix blood herb? Suddenly, Lu Xiaoxiao, who was standing beside Tang Yin, pointed at a small hill beside the waterfall and screamed. Her voice was filled with excitement. Phoenix blood herb? What was that? Bufang furrowed his brows and looked in the direction Lu Xiaoxiao was pointing at. He saw a blood-red blade of grass swaying in the wind on top of a small hill. It was like the tail of a phoenix, and a dense amount of spirit energy was being emitted from the blade of grass. Phoenix blood herb, a 7th-grade herb. Legend has it that it mutated due to being contaminated with the blood of the ancient phoenix. Those who consume it will have the opportunity to rise from the ashes and be reborn from the ashes. It is an extremely good ingredient for medicinal cuisine. The system recommends that you collect it. Bufang's eyes lit up. The phoenix blood herb seemed pretty good. This phoenix blood herb is about to mature. At that time, those spirit beasts hiding in the valley might appear. Senior, the spirit beast you're looking for will also appear, Tang Yin said. The phoenix blood herb is a good item. I didn't expect that there would be such a pleasant surprise. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched as he indifferently said. The phoenix blood herb, swaying in the wind, became even more beautiful. A dense spirit energy was being emitted, almost forming a white fog in the surroundings. When Lu Xiaoxiao heard Bufang's words, her expression immediately changed. She said, Senior, don't tell me you also want to obtain this phoenix blood herb? Bufang frowned. He puzzledly turned his head and glanced at her. Can I? As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Xiaoxiao's expression became ugly. Waves of intense spirit energy fluctuations were emitted from within the valley, and a terrifying pressure was continuously being emitted. Tang Yin's expression abruptly changed. He looked around and saw that the surroundings had unknowingly become densely packed with the shadows of beasts. Chapter 91. In a valley where spirit energy lingered, a white wave suddenly crashed down from the cliff and emitted a rumbling sound. It brought with it surging water vapor that scattered in all directions. Not far from the waterfall, Bufang and the others stood vigilantly as their gazes swept across their surroundings. Waves of beast roars rang out as spirit beasts with surging spirit energy emerged from the surroundings of the valley. A ferocious aura filled the entire valley, and there were at least several hundred densely packed beast silhouettes. Tang Yin's complexion became extremely pale, and there was not a single trace of blood on his face. As his gaze swept across these beast silhouettes, despair appeared in his eyes. He really did not expect that the temptation of the phoenix blood herb would be so great. The spirit energy emitted by the phoenix blood herb when it was about to ripen actually attracted so many spirit beasts. The strength of these spirit beasts were uneven. Among them, the majority were 5th-grade spirit beasts. However, there were also around a dozen 6th-grade spirit beasts. With such a lineup, not to mention Tang Yin, even 10 Tang Yins would find it hard to survive. Second brother, how could this be? How could there be so many spirit beasts? I don't want to die here. Lu Xiaoxiao's large eyes swept across these demonic beasts, and both her legs immediately began to tremble. If she knew that there were so many spirit beasts hiding in the valley of the fallen phoenix, she would not have come in. Bufang's expression did not change much. He merely slightly frowned as he glanced at the surrounding spirit beasts in astonishment. The phoenix blood herb is filled with rich spirit energy and has a huge effect on the evolution of spirit beasts. Therefore, it is extremely attractive to spirit beasts, Tang Yin said in a serious tone as his gaze landed on Bufang's body. Senior, if you are able to escape from this valley of the fallen phoenix, I hope that you can bring news of our deaths back to the sect. Tang Yin was in despair, and his voice was filled with helplessness. Lu Xiaoxiao had already collapsed onto the ground and was crying like a pear blossom in the rain. She was extremely regretful that she had courted death by stepping into this valley. Suddenly, Lu Xiaoxiao seemed to have thought of something. She sobbed as she looked hopefully at Bufang. Senior, you are so powerful. You will definitely be able to save us, right? Don't you guys also want this phoenix blood herb? Bufang said as he looked at Lu Xiaoxiao indifferently. Lu Xiaoxiao's expression immediately stiffened as she stared blankly at Bufang. She saw green smoke curling around Bufang's hand, and that unassuming kitchen knife appeared in his hand. Don't take me for a fool. Didn't you want to make use of me in the beginning? It's true that there's a spiritual beast here, but you only wanted to use me to deal with the spiritual beast so that you could obtain the Phoenix Blood Herb, right? The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched, revealing a faint smile as he looked at the dumbfounded Lu Xiaoxiao. When Tang Yin heard Bufang's words, he immediately let out a sigh. He was very clear that Bufang had long since guessed their intentions. However, Bufang might not have cared before, because his target was the spiritual beast ingredient. Therefore, it didn't matter even if he was being used. However, now that they had fallen into a crisis, Bufang naturally would not be so courteous anymore. Tang Yin felt helpless in his heart. This junior sister of his, Lu Xiaoxiao, was actually not a bad person, but she had a lot of petty thoughts. It was fine when she was in the sect, but now that she had so many petty thoughts outside, it was very easy for her to offend people. Do you guys still want the Phoenix Blood Herb? Bufang expressionlessly asked. At this moment, Lu Xiaoxiao's heart had already risen to her throat. When she heard Bufang's question, she hurriedly shook her head. No. Between her life and the Phoenix Blood Herb, Lu Xiaoxiao chose life without any hesitation. Senior, could it be that you have the confidence to resolve this desperate situation? Tang Yin was also startled. Then, he suddenly became overjoyed and excitedly asked. As expected of a senior, this situation might be a desperate situation for them, but for an unfathomable senior like Bufang, it was not a desperate situation. Bufang glanced at him. Just as he was about to nod his head, he discovered that the surrounding herd of beasts had suddenly become restless. Rumble. Intense tremors occurred on both sides of the valley. Then, the sound of trees snapping rang out in the valley. Two enormous figures walked out from within, and a terrifying aura suppressed the entire valley. Tang Yin's face instantly turned deathly pale. As he gazed at the two figures that had just appeared, the hope that had originally arisen was once again shattered. Two 7th-grade spirit beasts. It's over, we're dead for sure. Lu Xiaoxiao burst into tears again. The hope that had arisen was forcefully shattered. This kind of psychological disparity caused her to have an emotional breakdown. Bufang's eyes immediately lit up as he gazed at the enormous bull's silhouette on his right that was burning with a faint red flame. My goodness, this ingredient is much better than the Thunderfire Spirit Pig. Among the two 7th-grade spirit beasts, the one on the right was a 7th-grade wandering dragon bull. Its body was wrapped in an unending stream of flames, and it had the head of a bull and the tail of a dragon. The spirit beast on the left was also a 7th-grade spirit beast. It was a gigantic spirit ape with golden fur all over its body. Tang Yi knew that there was a 7th-grade wandering dragon bull in the valley, but he did not expect there to be another spirit ape. With two 7th-grade spirit beasts overseeing the valley, Tang Yin would not dare to enter even if he was given 100 guts. No matter how powerful the senior was, could he possibly deal with two 7th-grade spirit beasts? Even if a 7th-grade battle saint encountered these two spirit beasts, they would only be able to flee in panic. Rumble. The wandering dragon bull let out a roar, and the entire valley seemed to be trembling. The spirit ape also bared its teeth and let out a shrill cry. The auras of the two sides immediately clashed with each other. The Phoenix Blood Herb on the small hill swayed even more cheerfully, and the spirit energy it emitted became even denser. Vaguely, there seemed to be a phoenix rising from the ashes about to soar into the sky. The Phoenix Blood Herb was about to mature. Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao were also on the verge of despair. They clearly knew that once the Phoenix Blood Herb matured, the valley would definitely turn into a battlefield for the two 7th-grade spirit beasts. At that time, the few of them would definitely be torn into pieces by the enraged spirit beasts. Bufang did not pay attention to the others. His gaze, like the two 7th-grade spirit beasts, also landed on the Phoenix Blood Herb. That was a precious spirit herb that could incite a war between 7th grade spirit beasts. The water from the waterfall gushed down and crashed into the pond. Suddenly, in just an instant, the entire valley became silent, so silent that it made one's heart palpitate. The rumbling sound of the waterfall disappeared, the snorting sound of the wandering dragon bull disappeared, and the shrill cry of the spirit ape could not be heard either. The entire valley seemed to have turned into a forbidden zone for sound. On top of the small hill, the phoenix blood grass swayed gently as red specks of light emitted from it. Red spots appeared on the leaves of the grass, and the dark red color was like burning blood. A phoenix cry resounded throughout the entire silent valley. After the phoenix cry, all sounds returned to normal. The phoenix blood herb had matured. Moo! The wandering dragon bull let out a roar, and its eyes suddenly turned blood red. Its hooves abruptly stomped on the ground, and it madly galloped toward the phoenix blood herb. The entire valley began to tremble. The 6th grade and 5th grade demonic beasts behind the wandering dragon bull also madly roared and rushed out one after another to follow behind a wandering dragon bull. The spirit ape fiercely pounded its chest with its fists and let out a shrill cry. It also dashed toward the phoenix blood herb with a majestic horde of spirit beasts following behind it. Bufong and the other two, who were at the border between the two sides, were instantly like a small boat in the middle of a vast ocean. In front of these gigantic spirit beasts, it was as if they would be trampled into mincemeat in the next moment. Tang Yin and Lu Xiaoxiao had already closed their eyes in despair. Bufong expressionlessly glanced at the spirit beasts galloping toward him from both sides. He unhurriedly raised the golden dragon bone kitchen knife and raised it above his head. The true energy within his body suddenly burst forth and surged into the golden dragon bone kitchen knife. A resplendent golden color blossomed like the scorching sun and was incomparably glaring. A gigantic, translucent golden kitchen knife was carried on Bufong's shoulder. With Bufong as the center, a vast dragon's might immediately spread out in all directions and turned into a wave of ripples. In the next moment, the figures of all the frantically galloping spirit beasts came to an abrupt halt and fell to the ground in a panic. Once the kitchen knife was unsheathed, 10,000 beasts prostrated themselves. The god of cooking set the golden dragon bone kitchen knife. It was that domineering. Chapter 92. The pressure released by the golden dragon bone kitchen knife spread out like a ripple and instantly poured down, causing all of the spirit beasts to lie on the ground. Spirit beasts below the 5th grade were all shivering under this pressure. Spirit beasts were a species with a very strict hierarchy. They worshipped the strong and feared the strong. The suppressive effect of a high-grade spirit beast on a low-grade spirit beast was very obvious. Therefore, in the wildlands, spirit beasts were divided into territories. This was also the reason why the wildlands had its outer, inner, and central areas. The golden dragon bone kitchen knife contained the might of a dragon. The dragon race had always stood at the top of the food chain of spirit beasts. They looked down on all spirit beasts and were the kings of spirit beasts. They had the ability to suppress any spirit beast. Therefore, Bufong raised the golden dragon bone kitchen knife and infused his true energy into it, activating the golden dragon bone kitchen knife's form. The resplendent golden light was incomparably dazzling. Accompanied by the surging might of the golden dragon, all of the spirit beasts in the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix were lying on the ground. Even the spirit ape and the wandering dragon cow were no exception. A strong gale spread out with Bufong at the center, causing his hair to flutter unceasingly. The long robe on his body also fluttered in the wind. He carried the giant golden dragon bone kitchen knife on his shoulder and raised his head. His face was expressionless as he swept his gaze over all the spirit beasts. Even though the wandering dragon cow was a 7th grade spirit beast, the golden dragon bone kitchen knife suppression on it was even stronger than the other spirit beasts. Because a trace of the dragon race's bloodline flowed through its veins, It could only lie on the ground and shiver in the face of the authentic dragon race's might. Tang Yin originally closed his eyes in despair, but he suddenly realized that the surroundings seemed to have quietened down. The stampede of beasts he imagined did not happen. He immediately opened his eyes in puzzlement and immediately saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Lu Xiaoxiao was so frightened that her beautiful face turned pale. Her face was also filled with astonishment. There were still traces of tears on her face, and her mouth was slightly open. She blankly stared at Bufang, who was carrying a gigantic golden kitchen knife not far away. The surroundings were filled with spirit beasts prostrating on the ground. What the hell is going on? Senior. Tang Yin felt that his mouth was a little dry. What did he just see? What exactly happened here? These spiritual beasts, including the two 7th-grade spiritual beasts, were actually kneeling in front of Senior. Senior was actually this powerful. Did he just rely on his aura to conquer this group of spirit beasts? Is this Senior's true strength? The reverence in Tang Yin's heart grew, and he felt that Bufang was unfathomable. He was even more powerful than the sect leader of his own sect. At least the sect leader couldn't make a spiritual beast crawl before him. At this moment, in his eyes, Bufang, whose true energy level was only at the 4th-grade battle spirit level, suddenly became as lofty as an 8th-grade war god. Bufang carried the kitchen knife and rolled his eyes. His gaze landed on Tang Yin, who was staring at him with a constantly changing expression. Bufang frowned and said, "Aren't you guys going to escape?" Tang Yin was stunned. "If I were you, I would run away now and never look back. I would run as far as I can," Bufang said expressionlessly. Tang Yin immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He instantly understood what Bufang meant. Senior was creating an opportunity for them to escape. Otherwise, with Senior's unfathomable cultivation level, he would have already started fighting with the spiritual beasts. Why would he care about them? He was touched, indescribably touched. Tang Yin clenched his teeth and pulled up the dumbfounded Lu Xiaoxiao. He respectfully bowed toward Bufang and solemnly said, "Senior, I will never be able to repay you for saving my life today. Senior, take care. Yes, let's go. Oh, remember to visit Fong Fong's little store in the Light Wind Empire when you have time. The delicacies there are pretty good and the prices are very affordable," Bufang simply said. Tang Yin was startled for a moment. He seriously nodded and pulled Lu Xiaoxiao away. Second brother, the Phoenix Blood Herb." Lu Xiaoxiao seemed to have just regained her senses. She anxiously blurted out when she saw Tang Yin pulling her away. "You're still thinking about the Phoenix Blood Herb at this moment? Do you want to die?" Tang Yin was also infuriated. Senior was magnanimous enough to create an opportunity for them to escape, yet his junior sister was still thinking about the Phoenix Blood Herb. It was simply unreasonable. At this moment, Lu Xiaoxiao also realized what was going on. She glanced at the expressionless yet unfathomable Bufang in the distance, and her entire body trembled. Then, without saying a word, she followed Tang Yin and left. Bufang watched as the two figures left the Valley of the Fallen Phoenix, and his gaze once again fell upon the spirit beasts in front of him. The true energy within his body was gradually becoming insufficient in order to maintain the form of the golden dragon bone kitchen knife. Therefore, Bufang no longer hesitated. He held the handle of the kitchen knife with one hand and abruptly pressed it down. Immediately, a surging pressure was once again released. The spiritual beasts that were lying on the ground all trembled. Bufang pointed his kitchen knife at the spirit ape. He raised his head and indifferently said, "You're not suitable to be my ingredient, so scram." The spirit ape's enormous figure trembled, and it immediately bared its teeth at Bufang. However, its eyes were still filled with fear and unwillingness. The Phoenix Blood Herb had already matured. To give it up just like that, as a 7th-grade spirit beast that had just gained sentience, it was naturally unwilling. Are you really not leaving?" Bufang knitted his brows. He waved the kitchen knife in his hand and walked to the wandering dragon cow's side. The wandering dragon cow's entire head was buried in the ground, and its draconic tail was curled up. It did not dare to move at all. Even though it possessed the dragon bloodline, it was completely suppressed. Bufong did not say anything. He indifferently looked at the spirit ape and then swung his kitchen knife down, cutting off the wandering dragon cow's horn as if he was cutting through tofu. The wandering dragon cow felt wronged. If you wanted him to leave, shouldn't you go and deal with him instead? Why did you bully a cow? Did you really think that cows were easy to bully? As an old rival, the spirit ape naturally knew how hard and sharp the horn of the wandering dragon cow was. However, this horn was actually cut off by a single slash from this terrifying human. Fine, a good monkey would not fight with a treacherous human like you. With a sharp cry, the 7th grade spirit ape leaped up with a belly full of unwillingness. It directly leaped out of the valley and disappeared into the distance in an instant. The spiritual beast that followed behind the spirit ape also retreated like a receding tide. After using the same method to drive away the spiritual beast behind a wandering dragon cow, only Bufong, who was carrying the enormous golden dragon bone kitchen knife, and the trembling wandering dragon cow, who was lying on the ground with one of its horns broken, were left in the entire valley. Bufong patted the wandering dragon cow's enormous body and clicked his tongue in wonder. Not bad. This ingredient is much better than the Thunderfire spirit pig. The wandering dragon cow's big head was filled with doubt. Ingredient? What ingredient? In the next instant, the golden dragon bone kitchen knife gradually enlarged in front of the wandering dragon cow's eyes, enlarged. When the true energy within its body was finally exhausted to the point where it could no longer maintain the golden dragon bone kitchen knife's form, the kitchen knife returned to its unremarkable appearance and turned into smoke before dissipating. Bufong patted the wandering dragon cow's enormous corpse once again. With a wave of his hand, he stored it into the spatial bag provided by the system. Congratulations to the host for completing the abrupt mission. Carry out the first ingredient capture. The mission reward will now be issued. In 1 minute, the teleportation will begin. Please prepare yourself. Just as the wandering dragon cow's corpse was put away, the system's solemn and earnest voice rang out. Bufong was startled. Only 1 minute left? The phoenix blood herb had not been plucked yet. A small speck of light had already appeared above Bufong's head. This small speck of light was slowly drawing a mysterious teleportation array. Bufong was already used to this sight. When he thought of the phoenix blood herb, Bufong did not hesitate. He turned around and ran toward the small hill. The speck of light above his head was still drawing. As time passed, the magic array was already halfway completed. 10 seconds until the return. Countdown begins. 10, 9. Bufong's face was still expressionless, but anxiety could be seen in his eyes. He was getting closer and closer to the phoenix blood herb, but the countdown to the return was also constantly approaching. Give me 1 more second. I can pry open the entire valley. Bufong shouted in his heart. Then he leaped with all his might and grabbed the phoenix blood herb that was like a phoenix soaring into the sky. A sharp pain was instantly transmitted from his palm to his brain. However, before he could let out a scream, the magic array was already completed. A gust of violent wind whistled out and then dissipated. The Valley of the Fallen Phoenix once again returned to its peaceful state. The waterfall flowed down and everything returned to normal. Chapter 93. Light Wind Empire, the Imperial City, Fong Fong's little store. Within the void of the store, a speck of light appeared. Then, this speck of light rapidly wandered around in the void and drew a magic array. As a gust of wind swept by, a figure appeared under the magic array. Bufong absent-mindedly returned to the store. His entire body was dizzy, and he plopped down on the floor, gasping for breath. His breathing was extremely heavy. The host has returned to the store. The mission reward will now be distributed. The system's serious and solemn voice resounded in Bufong's mind. However, Bufong did not pay attention to it. His gaze landed on a fiery red herb that he was tightly grasping in his hand. The herb was extremely hot when he held it in his hand, as if he was holding a piece of magma. Fortunately, I managed to catch it. Otherwise, it would be such a waste if I missed out on this 7th-grade spirit herb after working so hard for so long. The corners of Bu Fang's mouth curled up, and a smile seemed to appear on his stiff face. The phoenix blood herb was entirely dark red in color. A matured phoenix blood herb became even more resplendent, as if it was carved out of exquisite red agate. There were specks of dark red on its surface, as if it was stained with blood. As he held it in his hand, he felt an incomparable heat. However, this heat was not acting on his skin, but on his mind instead. He found a jade box and put away the phoenix blood herb. He did not choose to put it into the system's spatial bag. Instead, he placed the phoenix blood herb into a cupboard. Similarly, he also took out the sage ginseng that he had plucked. The sage ginseng was plump and extremely alluring as it emitted a fragrance. Bu Fang resisted the temptation and put the sage ginseng into the cupboard as well. After doing all this, Bu Fang finally let out a long breath and stretched his back. The bones in his entire body emitted the sound of colliding. This first time capturing ingredients was actually a rather meaningful experience. The God of Cooking set is still the God of Cooking set after all. Without the golden dragon bone kitchen knife, I really can't do anything. No wonder the system only activated this cooking ingredient hunting mission after I obtained the God of Cooking set. Bu Fang twisted his neck and walked upstairs. Bu Fang took a shower first. His hair was loose and dripping with water. He felt much more refreshed. He returned to his room. Bu Fang was tired after hunting for ingredients for 2 days. It was time for him to have a good sleep. But before he went to sleep, he wanted to understand the quest reward that the system had just given him. Rice noodle roll cooking techniques? Bu Fang narrowed his eyes. He was very interested in this new dish. As a chef, he was no stranger to the rice noodle roll. After all, it was a very delicious breakfast. The rice noodle roll was a type of rice product. It was also known as pulled rice noodle roll, rolled rice noodle roll, or pig rice noodle roll. It could be considered a relatively simple delicacy. The main step was to steam the rice milk until it was thin. Then, the filling that had just been stir-fried would be poured into the thin skin and rolled up. As Bu Fang thought about the cooking method of the rice noodle roll, he could not help but feel a little itchy in his heart. He could not wait to try this delicacy that had just appeared. However, after thinking about it, he still gave up. The main reason was that he had exhausted too much of his true energy. He was a little tired and seemed a little lazy. Another reason was that the rice noodle roll was considered a breakfast dish. It was best to wake up early in the morning and cook it. Therefore, Bu Fang gave up on the urge to practice cooking. He lay on his bed and quickly fell asleep. The night quietly passed. The next day, just after dawn, Bu Fang got out of bed. He stretched his body and washed up. After that, he went to the kitchen and practiced his cutting skills. His meteor cutting skill was almost at the peak of the first level. He would probably be able to reach the peak after another day of training tomorrow. After finishing his cutting skills practice, Bu Fang cooked a dish of sweet and sour ribs. This was Black's daily meal. Bu Fang was very skilled at cooking. Soon, the rich and intoxicating aroma of the meat wafted in the kitchen. Carrying the dish of sweet and sour ribs into the store, Bu Fang opened the door and the cold wind immediately whistled in. The imperial city of the Light Wind Empire had officially entered winter. The sky was overcast, and there seemed to be a sign of heavy snow. Blackie, it's time to eat. As Bu Fang carried the dish of sweet and sour ribs to Blackie, the gluttonous dog instantly jumped up from the ground. It stuck out its tongue and excitedly stared at the sweet and sour ribs in Bu Fang's hand. I haven't eaten for 2 days. I'm starving to death. Lord, go. Black's eyes were shining as it stared fixedly at the sweet and sour ribs. The intoxicating aroma of the meat almost made Black fall into a trance. When Bu Fang placed the sweet and sour ribs in front of it, it impatiently started gobbling down the plate. It was the same recipe and the same taste. Sweet and sour ribs. This was the taste. Looking at Black's tail that was constantly wagging while gobbling down the plate, the corners of Bu Fang's mouth curled up. He turned around and stepped into the kitchen, preparing to try the rice noodle roll. He first took out the rice milk prepared by the system. The rice milk was as white as milk and emitted a faint fragrance. It was obvious that the rice used to grind the rice milk was not ordinary rice. Bufang poured the rice milk into a specially made tray. The tray was not thick, so the rice milk was not very thick either. It was about 2 millimeters. After pouring the rice milk, Bufang placed the tray into the steamer rack to cook. While the rice milk was cooking, Bufang started to prepare the meat filling required for the rice noodle roll. Pork or beef, shrimp, vegetable leaves, dried vegetables. Bufang muttered as he prepared all the ingredients. However, when he took out the pork prepared by the system, he was slightly taken aback. An idea involuntarily emerged in his mind. System, if I change this pork to wandering dragon cow's beef, it should work, right? Bufang asked. Yes, but because of the change of ingredients, the price of the dish will change, the system seriously said. How big a change? Bufang curiously asked. The system's solemn voice rang out once more. The original filling of the rice noodle roll was 3rd grade spirit pork. After the host changes it to 7th grade wandering dragon cow's beef, the price of the rice noodle roll will increase from 10 crystals to 60 crystals per serving. Increased from 10 crystals to 60 crystals. Bufang blinked his eyes and couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. 7th grade ingredients were 7th grade ingredients after all. It was indeed impressive. However, with such an expensive rice noodle roll, no one would choose to eat it. System, can the rice noodle roll with wandering dragon cow's beef as the improved rice noodle roll? Yes, the system replied. This was actually the same principle as egg fried rice and the improved egg fried rice. Bufang nodded his head. A wisp of green smoke flashed in his hand, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. He began to prepare the filling. He first cooked the 3rd grade spirit pork and prepared to make the normal rice noodle roll. After preparing the meat filling, he took out a small piece of wandering dragon cow's beef. The wandering dragon cow was huge, so taking out such a small piece of meat was really nothing. The 2 types of meat filling were placed separately, and the rice milk was also cooked. When the tray was taken out, white steam rose from it. The steam was mixed with the fragrance of rice, and it was rich and intoxicating, causing Bufang to involuntarily take in a deep breath. He took out the cooked rice noodle roll from the tray. The rice noodle roll was sparkling and translucent like jade. It was as smooth as a mirror and was extremely pleasing to the eye. After taking out the rice noodle roll, the dragon bone kitchen knife in Bufang's hand spun for a while. Then the rice noodle roll was evenly divided into rectangular pieces. After taking out a piece of rice noodle roll, Bufang first placed the 3rd grade spirit pork, shrimp, and vegetable fillings on top of it. Then, he carefully rolled it up. A snow-white, paper-thin, glossy, fragrant, and delicious rice noodle roll was completed. Chapter 94. Like a piece of exquisitely carved jade, Bufang carried the rice noodle roll back into the store. As he stared at the glossy and shiny rice noodle roll, his stomach involuntarily let out a slight growl. The aroma of the rice noodle roll was not very strong. Perhaps it was because it was wrapped in the rice noodle wrapper. However, its appearance was extremely appetizing. At least, Bufang could no longer hold it in. When eating the rice noodle roll, it naturally had to be paired with a special dipping sauce. The sour and refreshing dipping sauce, coupled with the smooth and delicious rice noodle roll, just the thought of it was enough to excite anyone. After taking a bite of the rice noodle roll, the oil in the minced meat immediately overflowed. The accumulated aroma of the meat burst forth in an instant and instantly surged on Bufang's face, causing him to be completely intoxicated. The rice noodle wrapper was smooth and had an excellent texture. It slightly bounced on the walls of his mouth and emitted an elasticity when he bit down. As expected, the products produced by the system were definitely of the highest quality. The taste of the rice noodle roll was indeed not bad and was worthy of the price of 10 crystals. Bufang nodded his head and then continued to attack the rice noodle roll. Aya, Owner Boo, you're finally open. I missed you so much these past 2 days. While Bufong was eating the rice noodle roll, a rough voice came from outside the door. Fatty Jean and his army of fatties had arrived in a grandiose manner. The moment they entered the store, they saw Bufong eating the rice noodle roll. Fatty Jin's eyes immediately lit up. As he smelled the aroma within the store, he was a little impatient. Owner Boo, is this another new dish? Fatty Jean asked. Oh, yes, Bufong, with his mouth still stuffed with a rice noodle roll, gave Fatty Jean a glance and calmly replied. Fatty Jean swallowed a mouthful of saliva. When he saw Bufong swallow the last mouthful of the rice noodle roll, his stomach involuntarily rumbled. He turned his head to look at the menu on the wall. New dish. Rice noodle roll, right? Huh. There's an improved version like the egg fried rice. Fatty Jean exclaimed in surprise. He then looked at the price of the rice noodle roll. 10 crystals for a serving of rice noodle roll. 60 crystals per serving. Owner Boo, the price difference is ridiculous. Lao Jean turned his head and said to Bufong, who was cleaning the plates, You'll know if the price is outrageous after you eat it. Bufong was expressionless. After replying, he returned to the kitchen and placed the plates on the dishwasher before returning to the store. Fatty Jean was actually a little conflicted. Although he had money, he still couldn't afford a few hundred yuan crystals a day, even though his family mined yuan crystal mines. Let's have an ordinary rice noodle roll first, then a serving of sweet and sour ribs and red braised pork. Oh, and a serving of improved egg fried rice. After eating Owner Boo's egg fried rice, my cultivation speed has increased by a lot. I'm about to break through to 4th grade battle spirit, Fatty Jean said with a chuckle. Okay, wait a moment. Bufong nodded. After taking note of the other people's orders, he turned around and stepped into the kitchen. Now that he had the God of Cooking set, Bufong's knife skills had improved by a lot. The speed at which he processed the ingredients was much faster than before. In just a short while, he had finished processing all the ingredients and started cooking. A rich aroma once again drifted out from the kitchen. The aroma drifted into the store, and Fatty Jean and the others could not help but become intoxicated. The dishes cooked by Owner Boo smell so good. Just the smell alone makes me feel satisfied. Fatty Jean hummed in an intoxicated manner. After a while, Bufong carried the dishes out of the kitchen. He first served Fatty Jean the rice noodle roll. This was also the dish that Fatty Jean wanted to eat the most. After all, it was a new dish, and he obviously wanted to try it first. Here's your rice noodle roll. Please enjoy, Bufong lightly said as he placed a rice noodle roll in front of Fatty Jean and placed a small plate of dipping sauce on it. Fatty Jean looked at the rice noodle roll that was as translucent as jade and resembled a work of art. He could not help but lick his lips. He immediately grabbed a piece of the rice noodle roll, dipped it in the dipping sauce, and impatiently took a bite. The elastic skin of the rice noodle roll was wrapped around the fragrant spirit pork. When he bit into it, the oil that seeped out caused Fatty Jin's body to involuntarily shiver. His eyes instantly lit up. It's delicious. Owner Boo's dishes are indeed exquisite. Fatty Jean licked his lips and continued eating the rice noodle roll after licking away the oil. However, with his appetite, he finished the rice noodle roll in just 3 bites. As he sucked on his fingers, the fat on Fatty Jin's face was almost twisted into a ball. Such a small piece was enough to make him want more. However, Owner Boo's dishes could only be ordered once. Owner Boo, give me a serving of the improved rice noodle roll. Unable to resist the temptation of the rice noodle roll, Fatty Jean clenched his teeth and ordered the improved rice noodle roll. 1 rice noodle roll was equivalent to 6 ordinary rice noodle rolls. In the kitchen, Bufong was slightly startled. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he nodded. He first served the other dishes to Fatty Jean, then served the others' dishes one after another. Finally, he began to cook Fatty Jin's improved rice noodle roll. The steps of the improved rice noodle roll were basically the same. The main change was in the meat filling. It used an ingredient that Bufong personally caught the 7th grade wandering dragon cow's meat. Bufang took out a small piece of the wandering dragon cow's meat. The wandering dragon cow's meat was extremely tender, and the veins on its surface seemed to be overflowing with light and vibrant colors. Bufang used the dragon bone kitchen knife to mince the beef. Since the dragon bone kitchen knife was able to preserve the ingredients' spirit energy, the spirit energy of the wandering dragon cow's meat was perfectly preserved. After it was cooked, the fragrance of the meat exploded in the kitchen like a bomb. Even the fatties in the store were attracted by the fragrance. They all swallowed their saliva and looked toward Bufang's direction. What kind of meat was this? It was actually so fragrant. They had never smelled such fragrant meat before. This was the thought in the minds of all the fatties. They were looking forward to the next dish that Bufang would bring out. Soon, a tall and thin figure walked out of the kitchen. His slender fingers were holding a porcelain plate. On the porcelain plate, there was a sparkling and translucent rice noodle roll. Everyone's eyes that were originally filled with anticipation immediately revealed a trace of disappointment. So it was still the rice noodle roll. Fatty Jean did not mind. After all, he was the one eating it. Therefore, he happily waited for the improved rice noodle roll. Foolish people, this is the improved rice noodle roll, 60 crystals for a serving. How can you judge a dish from its appearance? You have to pay attention to its inner beauty. The fat on Fatty Jin's face was constantly trembling. The improved rice noodle roll. Please enjoy, Bufang calmly said. Fatty Jin glanced at Bufang. Then he grabbed the rice noodle roll, dipped it in the sauce, and sent it into his mouth while trembling. This mouthful was 20 essence crystals. Fatty Jean felt that he was not biting a rice noodle roll, but a precious crystal essence. Therefore, he was very careful. After he finished biting, he even pursed his lips so that not a single piece of meat would be wasted. Once the rice noodle roll entered his mouth, the difference immediately appeared. Fatty Jin's eyes were originally very small, but under everyone's gaze, this old man's small eyes actually widened to the maximum within a second. His nostrils expanded and 2 streams of hot air were spat out. The hot air was filled with dense spirit energy. Gulp! After chewing for a while, Fatty Jean swallowed the rice noodle roll. His entire body seemed to have experienced a roller coaster as he heaved a sigh of relief. How was the taste? Bufang was also a little curious as he asked. He had never tried the improved rice noodle roll before. However, the taste of the 7th grade wandering dragon meat was definitely not bad. On this point, Bufang was still very confident. Fatty Jin's mouth was trembling and his nostrils were constantly spitting out spirit energy. He looked at Bufang and gave him 2 thumbs up. Unparalleled. Extremely delicious. Fatty Jin grinned and said, "This dense spirit energy made the true energy in my body reach a bottleneck in an instant. My confidence in breaking through has become even greater." After Fatty Jin finished praising, he no longer spoke. After finishing the rice noodle roll, he hurriedly paid the bill and left with his army of fatties. He was going back to break through his cultivation. Bufang also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. It seemed like the ingredients he caught had a pretty good response. After cleaning up the bowls and chopsticks, the store became quiet for a moment. Bufang pulled a chair over and curled up at the entrance. Looking at the empty alley that had been repaired by the Crown Prince's men, a trace of doubt involuntarily emerged in his heart. Usually, the little girl should already be here by this time, right? Why isn't she here today? Could it be that she forgot that I will be opening the store today? Bufang thought to himself as he let out a satisfied breath. Chapter 95. Imperial City, Ouyang Manor. Old Master Ouyang sat in the main hall with a solemn expression. Almost all the members of the Ouyang clan had gathered here. Ouyang Zongheng sat below the elder with a solemn expression like a statue. The atmosphere in the entire main hall became extremely solemn. Xiao Yi pursed her lips and was unhappy. Her big eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. After shooting a glance at the old man sitting in the hall, she unhappily harumphed and turned her head away. You three brats, watch over Xiaoi. Don't allow her to take even half a step out of the Ouyang manor today. The elder felt a headache coming on when he saw Ouyang Xiaoi like that, but he still kept a straight face and instructed the three barbarians of Ouyang. The three barbarians of Ouyang nodded and solemnly looked at Ouyang Xiaoi. However, when they were glared at by the angry Ouyang Xiaoi, the three of them immediately shrunk back in guilt. Grandpa, why don't you allow me to go out? The store still needs my help. Ouyang Xiaoi angrily asked the elder. The elder also glared at her. Girl, Grandpa is doing this for your own good. The situation in the imperial city has become grim these past few days. The crown prince and second prince have begun to wantonly rope in the officials of the imperial court. In order to rope in people, they are resorting to any means possible. Isn't this because they are afraid that something might happen to you? Even if that's the case, you can't stop me from going to the store to help. Ouyang Xiaoi was still unwilling as she angrily said with a pout. Help? Help what? You're the daughter of a general. Why are you always showing your face in public and going to a small store to work as a waitress? What a scandal. The elder was also angered by the stubborn girl as his beard twitched. When Ouyang Xiaoi heard this, she immediately crossed her arms and coldly glanced at the elder. She lightly smiled and said, Grandpa, that's not what you said yesterday. When I broke through to 4th grade battle spirit yesterday, you were clearly very happy and couldn't wait for me to work as a waitress every day. The elder's body stiffened and a trace of embarrassment appeared on his face. However, he soon shamelessly grinned and said, I said I'm not allowed to go, so I'm not allowed to go. Today, you will obediently stay in the manor. Oomph. Smelly Grandpa, I'm ignoring you. Ouyang Xiaoi was furious. He snorted at old Master Ouyang, cocked his head, and left the great hall in a huff. What are you three brats doing standing there for? Go watch that girl. The old man roared at the three barbarians of Ouyang who were watching the show. Ouyang Zongheng wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Father, we can't mess up the seniority. How is His Majesty doing? Old Master Ouyang calmed down as he watched the three barbarians of Ouyang leave dejectedly. He turned his head and asked Ouyang Zongheng, who was wiping his cold sweat. Ouyang Zongheng's expression immediately turned cold as he solemnly said, The situation is not optimistic. Old Master Ouyang immediately sighed. When His Majesty was young, he had gone on a campaign against the sects and fought with many experts, leaving behind a body full of hidden injuries. Now that he had reached old age, these hidden injuries had suddenly flared up. Even Emperor Changfeng would not be able to withstand them. Ouyang Zongheng also helplessly sighed. The situation in the capital was already somewhat grim. If His Majesty were to die, the capital would instantly descend into chaos. This was also the reason why the old man did not allow Ouyang Xiaoi to leave the Ouyang manor. For a moment, the lobby fell into silence and no one spoke. After a long while, a figure quickly rushed into the lobby and knelt in front of old Master Ouyang with a secret letter in his hand. The old man's eyelids twitched as he opened the secret letter and quickly skimmed through its contents. After he finished reading, the old man's expression became extremely ugly, and even his white beard was slightly trembling. Father, how is the situation? Ouyang Zongheng swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked. With a burst of true energy, the old man directly burned the secret letter into ashes with a trembling hand. A trace of sadness and sorrow appeared in his eyes. His Majesty has passed away. After saying that, the old man seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. On the main street of the imperial city, a petite figure was skipping toward Fong Fong's little store. Oomph. Idiot grandfather. He actually let my 3 idiot brothers watch over me. How could their blockheads watch over the intelligent Xiaoi? Ouyang Xiaoi's big eyes narrowed into the shape of a crescent moon. She could not help but laugh when she thought of her grandfather's angry expression when he found out about her escape. It's snowing. As Ouyang Xiaoi was walking, she suddenly let out a cry of surprise and puzzledly raised her head. She saw a gust of cold wind blowing past from the overcast sky, and then snowflakes as white as goose feathers quietly drifted down. Ouyang Xiaoi extended her fair palm, and a snowflake landed on it. It silently melted and turned into a bone-chilling snowy water, as if the sky was weeping. "How beautiful!" Xiaoi softly murmured as she exhaled a breath of white air. Then, she flung away the water and continued walking. The first snowfall of the imperial city came so suddenly. The pedestrians on the main street all stopped to admire it for a while before hurrying on. Behind Ouyang Xiaoi, several figures abruptly followed. In an instant, they sped up and surrounded Ouyang Xiaoi. Ouyang Xiaoi's big eyes immediately widened. True energy immediately burst forth from her body in an attempt to break out of the encirclement. However, the cultivation levels of the people surrounding her were actually all 5th grade Battle Kings. It was impossible for Ouyang Xiaoi to escape, and she was captured. "Let go of me. My father is General Ouyang, and my grandfather is an elder of the imperial court. If you kidnap me, I will be beaten up." Ouyang Xiaoi was furious. There were actually people who dared to attack the general's daughter in the imperial city. The Battle Kings glanced at Ouyang Xiaoi. They could not be bothered to waste their breath on her. They immediately stuffed a rag into her mouth and carried her away. "Go back and report to the young master that the mission is completed." A figure nodded, then tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and instantly left the group. Bufang was curled up on a chair as he watched the heavy snowflakes slowly falling from the overcast sky of the alleyway. He could not help but shrink his body. It was snowing, and the weather had become even colder. There were very few customers today. It was so few that Bufang was not used to it. Most of the regulars did not show up. "Is it because of the snow?" Bufang muttered in a low voice as he curled up on a chair. Suddenly, the sound of messy footsteps came from the alleyway. 3 burly figures like bears appeared in front of the store. "Huh? Aren't these the 3 Ouyang brothers?" Bufang was slightly astonished as he looked at the 3 Ouyang brothers who anxiously appeared in front of the store. "Owner Bu, did that last Xiaoi come to your place?" Ouyang Zhen panted heavily as he directly asked. "That girl actually lied to us and snuck out. What happened to the basic trust between brothers and sisters?" Ouyang Di said. Bufang expressionlessly looked at the 3 brothers and indifferently said, "Ouyang Xiaoi did not come today." "Did not come? How? How could she?" Ouyang Wu stared at Bufang. Then, as if he had thought of something, the 3 brothers' expressions suddenly changed. They looked at each other and said, "Oh no, Xiaoi snuck out just to come to the store." However, at this moment, she was not in the store. There was only one possibility. "How dare these bastards kidnap my little sister?" Ouyang Zhen angrily roared. The 3 brothers immediately turned around and left in a rage, leaving behind a confused Bufang. Bufang expressionlessly watched the 3 of them leave. The corners of his mouth twitched. These 3 brothers must be stupid. Chapter 96. Within the Xiao Manor, Xiaoming blankly stared at the secret letter in his hand and did not speak for a long time. After a long while, Xiaoming finally let out a long sigh. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the main halls of the imperial palace. His eyes were filled with sorrow and indescribable grief. "Father, what happened?" Xiao Yanyu asked worriedly with a frown as she looked at Xiaoming's sorrowful expression. Xiao Xiaolong was also puzzled as he looked at his powerful father. Xiaoming had forbidden them from leaving the manor since morning. This caused the siblings who were planning to go to Fong Fong's little store to be extremely shocked. Compared to the carefree Ouyang Xiaoi, Xiao Yanyu was more perceptive. She could guess that the reason her father forbade them from leaving the Xiao Manor was to protect them. If they needed protection even within the imperial city, then there could only be one explanation. The imperial city was no longer safe, or in other words, it was no longer safe for the children of important officials like them. The imperial city is in chaos. Xiao Yanyu asked Xiao Meng with a voice that was like the chirping of an oriole in an empty valley. Xiaoming glanced at Xiao Yinyu as the muscles on his face slightly trembled before he slowly opened his mouth. His Majesty has passed away. When Xiao Yinyu and Xiao Xiaolong heard this, their bodies trembled. Then, their eyes abruptly widened. Not only the Xiao manor, but all of the influential officials within the imperial city also received the news. The news of the emperor's death instantly swept through the entire imperial city like a tsunami. The emperor of a generation, Emperor Changfeng, had passed away. This was an earth-shattering event for the entire Light Wind Empire. The situation within the imperial city was already obscure to begin with. Following the emperor's death, the imperial city suddenly surged like an undercurrent. The struggle between the crown prince and the second prince for the throne also began to move from the shadows to the light. This was evident from the fact that the influential officials within the imperial city ordered their children to obediently stay in their manors. Once the struggle for the throne began, they would need to rope in helpers and require the support of the officials. This support would need to be earned by themselves. In order to make the officials submit and fight for their support, they would need to use some shady methods, such as threats, kidnappings. They would resort to any means necessary. On this day, the news of Emperor Changfeng's death spread. The crown prince, Ji Qinggan, hurriedly entered the palace. King Yu also sped up his horse and entered the main hall. After about an hour or so, the crown prince and King Yu left the palace respectively. They prepared their carriages and started touring the residences of the various ministers, trying to rope them in. The battle between the crown prince and King Yu was finally a complete showdown. Zhao Mansion, Left Minister Zhao Muxing's mansion. As the Light Wind Empire's Minister of the Left, Zhao Muxing's status was highly respected. Even the princes had to show him respect when they met. This was enough to show his status in the Light Wind Empire. It could be said that he was second only to the Empire's guardian, Xiaoming. Zhao Muxing was not considered old, and he looked rather robust. However, his black and white hair gave him a sense of vicissitudes. He sat on the armchair, narrowed his eyes slightly, and patted his lower abdomen with his palm. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside the door, and a figure stepped into the room. "Father, I'm back." Zhao Rouge, who was wearing a brocade robe, elegantly stepped into the room and respectfully saluted Zhao Muxing, who was sitting on the armchair. "How did it go?" Zhao Muxing narrowed his eyes and indifferently asked. "Everything went smoothly, and we did not fail. However, why did father send people to capture Ouyang Xiaoi? Aren't you afraid of angering that lunatic, Ouyang Qi?" Zhao Rouge puzzledly looked at Zhao Muxing. He did not know why Zhao Muxing wanted to get involved in this mess under such circumstances. Ji Changfeng is dead. He's dead. The soup in the imperial city is finally going to boil. In order to make this soup more flavorful, of course, some adjustments are needed. Zhao Muxing opened his eyes. His eyes were deep and peaceful, as if they contained an aura that could calm one's heart. The reverence in Zhao Rouge's heart became even more intense. "You can leave now. Don't mistreat that little girl. We only caught her to take the lead. If she gets injured, that Ouyang Qi might really come after us. That old fart really treasures his granddaughter," Zhao Muxing said with a chuckle. "Let him cause a ruckus with the crown prince and King Yu first. Let him stir up this pot of soup." Zhao Rouge was slightly startled. Then, as if he understood something, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile as he nodded and left. Zhao Muxing once again chuckled as he watched Zhao Rouge's departing figure. After Zhao Rouge left Zhao Muxing's room, he walked around the Zhao Manor for a while and soon arrived in front of a room guarded by 2 fifth-grade battle kings. "Keep an eye on that girl. She's very clever. Don't let her get away with it," Zhao Rouge solemnly said. The 2 battle kings solemnly nodded. Zhao Rouge looked at the quiet room, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "I'm really curious. If Honorbu found out that you were kidnapped, how would he react? Would he bring that iron lump of his and directly charge out? That would be interesting." Inside the Crown Prince's palace, the Crown Prince had a bitter smile on his face as he looked at the overbearing old master Ouyang who was standing in the middle of the hall. He really could not bring himself to be angry at this doyen. Old master, I swear on my life that I definitely did not touch a single hair on Ouyang Xiaoyi. Ji Qinggan solemnly made a gesture of assurance toward the old master Ouyang. Mother asterisk her. Who else could it be if it wasn't you? If even a single hair on my darling Xiaoyi's head is harmed, I'll asterisk king demolish this crown prince's palace. The old master Ouyang did not have a good temper. He pointed at the crown prince's nose and fiercely scolded him, causing the crown prince's expression to fluctuate. However, the crown prince had no choice but to smile apologetically as he watched the old master Ouyang swagger away. Similarly, after leaving the crown prince's palace, the old master Ouyang directly went to King Yu's manor and scolded King Yu. However, he still did not receive any news about Ouyang Xiaoyi. However, after the two of them were scolded by the old master Ouyang, their originally hostile actions became slightly sluggish. Their confrontation was no longer as brazen as before. When the old master Ouyang returned to the Ouyang manor, his expression was no longer as domineering as it was when he scolded the crown prince and King Yu. Instead, it had become somewhat unsightly. If King Yu and the crown prince did not capture Xiaoyi, then who was the one who captured her? In the imperial city, who would have the guts to capture his, Ouyang Qi's, granddaughter? The old master Ouyang pondered. Finally, a name appeared in his mind. Zhao Masheng. For 3 days in a row, the number of customers in Fong Fong's little store became extremely sparse. It was so sparse that Bu Fong was bored to death every day. He could not feel the changes in the imperial city. The only thing he could feel was the decrease in customers. It had already been 3 days since Ouyang Xiaoyi last visited the store. She learned from Fatty Jean, who came to eat on time every day, that the current situation in the imperial city was extremely grim. All the major families were carefully choosing which side to support. That was because the emperor had passed away and the crown prince and King Yu had started a battle for the throne. Bu Fong was completely baffled by what he heard. He did not have the slightest idea about the so-called battle for the throne. After listening to a few sentences, he walked away in a daze. However, the news of the emperor's death still made him feel rather emotional. However, he was very concerned about the news of Ouyang Xiaoyi being kidnapped. After all, the little girl was his server and a member of Fong Fong's little store. Since she was Bu Fong's employee, he could not allow himself to be easily bullied. Bu Fong was curled up on a chair as he admired the continuously falling snow. The pure white snow had already begun to wrap the entire imperial city in a layer of silver, making it appear extremely beautiful. Owner Bu, you seem to be quite free. It seems like I came at the right time. A familiar, gentle, yet slightly domineering voice rang out. Zhao Rouge was standing at the entrance of the store with a smile on his face as he looked at Bu Fong. Chapter 97. Zhao Rouge, who was wearing a brocade robe, was elegant and handsome. He stood at the entrance of the store and smiled as he looked at Bu Fong, who was curled up in a chair. Bu Fong raised his eyebrows in surprise. He remembered this guy. He had tried to tempt him with crystals twice in the past, but was resolutely rejected each time. However, Bu Fong still remembered Zhao Rouge's appearance. Bu Fong stood up from his chair, glanced at Zhao Rouge, and simply asked, "What do you want?" Zhao Rouge stepped into the store, shook off the snow on his body, and let out a breath. Then, he sat down on a chair and glanced at the menu. After such a long time, the store seemed to have added quite a few dishes. The delicious dishes cooked by Bu Fong involuntarily appeared in his mind. His stomach slightly growled, and Zhao Rouge ordered a plate of sweet and sour ribs, improved egg-fried rice, and a jar of ice-hard jade urn wine. Bu Fong nodded his head, turned around, and stepped into the kitchen to start cooking. Not long after, a rich aroma drifted out from the kitchen. The fragrance was incomparably rich, causing Zhao Rouge to sniff. Not long after, Bu Fong's slender figure walked out from the kitchen with a dish in his hand and placed it in front of Zhao Rouge. Zhao Rouge did not immediately start eating. Even though the dish was emitting hot steam and was continuously tempting the worm in his stomach, Zhao Rouge still endured it. His eyes landed on Bu Fong with a smile that was not a smile. "Owner Bu, where's Xiaoyi? Did she not come today?" Zhao Rouge's tone contained a trace of ridicule. Bu Fong expressionlessly glanced at him, then pulled out a chair and sat down in front of Zhao Rouge. He was neither fast nor slow, neither flustered nor flustered. "She did not come today," Bu Fong simply said as his pitch-black eyes locked onto Zhao Rouge's face. Zhao Rouge was incomparably calm. Even after being directly stared at by Bu Fong, his expression did not change in the slightest. After suffering so many setbacks in the store, this was the first time he felt as if he had the initiative and could face Bu Fong with a condescending attitude. "Owner Bu, aren't you curious as to why she didn't come?" Zhao Rouge said with a smile. This time, Bu Fong did not reply and only stared at Zhao Rouge. Zhao Rouge did not panic. With a faint smile, he removed the seal of the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine and poured himself a cup of wine. The rich aroma of the wine immediately spread out and wrapped around the tip of his nose, causing him to reveal an intoxicated expression. In the past, he firmly believed that the Imperial Palace's bejeweled nectar wine was the best wine in the Light Wind Empire. However, ever since he drank the store's Ice Heart Jade Urn wine, he was completely subdued by this fine wine. "Owner Bu, would you like a cup as well?" Zhao Rouge politely asked as he waved the Celadon cup in his hand at Bu Fong. "Oh, wait. Oh," Bu Fong softly replied. Then, under Zhao Rouge's awkward gaze, he stood up and walked toward the kitchen. After a while, he came out with a clean Celadon wine cup. "Fill it up, you're welcome," Bu Fong said. Zhao Rouge was a little speechless as he looked at Bu Fong. "Can't you tell that I'm being polite? Given our relationship, would I ever treat you to a cup of wine? This wine is worth 15 crystals per piece. Most importantly, there isn't much of it." Under Bu Fong's sincere gaze, Zhao Rouge could not bring himself to refuse to pour a cup for Bu Fong. Thus, he could only fill up Bu Fong's cup with a straight face. Bu Fong picked up the Celadon cup and took a sip of the wine. A hint of comfort appeared in his eyes. Outside the store, it was snowing heavily and the cold air was howling. What a wonderful feeling it was to sit in the store and drink a mouthful of wine that warmed up one's body. "Owner Bu, are you really not curious about why Xiaoyi didn't come?" Zhao Rouge asked again. He finished the wine in his cup and narrowed his eyes as he looked at Bu Fong. "Why do I need to know?" Bu Fong glanced at him and placed the empty Celadon cup on the table. He picked up the jar of wine and filled it up for himself as he indifferently said. Zhao Rouge expressionlessly watched as Bu Fong drank the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine he ordered. He suddenly felt a little sad. Why did he have to be so talkative? "She's your employee. As an owner, don't you care about your employee?" Zhao Rouge said. "I care very much," Bu Fong said. "How do you look like you care?" The corners of Zhao Rouge's mouth twitched. He was a little speechless. Bu Fong finished another cup of wine, and a faint warm blush appeared on his fair cheeks. The alcohol was starting to take effect. However, once he started drinking the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine, there was a feeling that he could not stop. Therefore, Bu Fong poured himself another cup. Zhao Rouge's eyes were about to spit fire as he looked at Bu Fong. "How much is this jar of wine? You've already drunk 2 cups, and you still want to pour more. Do you have any shame?" Bu Fong placed the wine cup on the table and let out a long breath. Then he said to Zhao Rouge, "I'm very concerned, but I'm not worried because you guys won't do anything to the little girl." Bu Fong indifferently looked at Zhao Rouge. Zhao Rouge's pupils constricted as well. He did not expect Bu Fong to immediately guess that he was the one who kidnapped Ouyang Xiaoyi. "Aren't you just trying to expose yourself by coming here to talk about this? However, I'm not worried because you guys won't dare to do anything to the little girl. You guys can't afford to offend the Ouyang family," Bu Fong said. "Ha. Owner Bu, you're really insightful. Rouge, on the other hand, is being reckless. I wonder if Owner Bu is interested in joining forces with me? Now that the Imperial City is in chaos, it's a good time to pick a side. As long as Bu Fong joins forces with me, I can guarantee that Bufang's little store will become the most famous restaurant in the entire Imperial City and even the entire Light Wind Empire. Zhao Ruge's eyes suddenly became fervent as he stared at Bufang. Cooperate? Bufang expressionlessly looked at Zhao Ruge. Not interested. Owner Bu, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. My father is the current minister of the left, and he definitely has the ability to make Bufang's little store the #1 restaurant in the Light Wind Empire. Owner Bu has a powerful puppet and a supreme beast as his companion. It will be easy for us to help one of them ascend the throne, Zhao Ruge said. Bufang glanced at Zhao Ruge, shook his head, and poured himself another cup of wine. Just like that, the jar of Ice Heart Jade Urn wine was emptied. After finishing the wine, Bufang did not even reply to Zhao Ruge. He stood up unsteadily and slowly walked into the kitchen. Silence was a form of rejection. The fervent expression on Zhao Ruge's face gradually disappeared. Then, he calmly began to taste the sweet and sour ribs and egg-fried rice. However, when he picked up the jar of Ice Heart Jade Urn wine, he discovered that the jar was already empty. At that moment, Zhao Ruge really wanted to smash the jar of wine onto Bufang's head. This guy was really impolite. After he finished eating, Zhao Ruge left behind some crystals and left with a belly full of anger. He only drank 1 cup of the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine that cost 15 crystals per jar. The rest of the wine ended up in Bufang's stomach. How infuriating! In the Zhao manor, Zhao Mushing was wearing a large cloak made of crane feathers as he slowly walked through the garden of his home. However, there was indeed nothing beautiful about this silver-white garden. A figure floated in and landed in front of Zhao Mushing. He respectfully said, "My lord, the secret letter has been delivered to the crown prince." Zhao Mushing imperceptibly nodded his head. He raised his hand, and a faint yellow stream of true energy floated in his palm, giving off a sense of tranquility and serenity. "Very good. Has the young Duke Yang been captured?" Zhao Mushing simply asked. "He has been captured and placed in the same room as Ouyang Xiaoi," the figure respectfully replied. Zhao Mushing lightly exhaled a breath of white air. The feather-like snowflakes fell on his palm and were stirred by the true energy on his palm. They were immediately shattered and dissipated. Under that tranquil and peaceful true energy, there was actually a terrifying power hidden. With the young duke and the Ouyang family's girl, the crown prince will not be able to resist the temptation. The Light Wind Emperor, very good. Zhao Mushing dispersed the true energy on his palm and slowly stepped on the snow as he left the garden. He left behind these meaningful words that lingered in the surroundings. Chapter 98. Ouyang Xiaoi's eyes widened as she stared at the arrogant little boy in front of her. She knew this wimpy little boy. He was a very famous young marquis in the imperial capital. But why would this young marquis appear here? Yang Chun, the 7th son of the Marquis of Pacifying West. Yang Imo speaking of the Yang family. One had to talk about the Yang family's heroic deeds. The patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Imo, had 4 sons. The first 3 sons were all extremely talented and were once influential figures in the imperial city. Unfortunately, after they set off for war, all of them died on the battlefield without exception. In the end, Yang Chun was the only son left in the Yang family. Therefore, the Yang family was very concerned about Yang Chun. Because Yang Chun was the first successor to the marquis position, they could not afford to lose him. "What are you doing here, little girl?" Yang Chun was very arrogant. He had always set his brothers as his goals and worked hard on his cultivation. Now, he had also reached the level of a 4th grade battle spirit. His talent and cultivation level could be considered top-notch among his peers. Ouyang Xiaoi looked at Yang Chen's immature yet arrogant face and could not help but roll her eyes. She pouted and said, "Do you think I want to come here? There isn't even anything delicious here. This is simply hell on earth." Yang Chun did not seem to understand what Ouyang Xiaoi meant. Although they were imprisoned here, the people who captured them did not dare to mistreat them. They were served 3 meals a day. The dishes that were served were very delicious, and Yang Chun ate them with relish. You can actually eat this kind of food with such gusto. I can tell that you have never seen the world. Ouyang Xiaoi crossed her arms in front of her chest as she disdainfully glanced at the dishes on the table and Yang Chun, whose mouth was dripping with oil. You think I have never seen the world? You little girl, you are the one who has never seen the world. I have been to the Imperial City's Immortal Phoenix restaurant many times. Yang Chun was unhappy. His mouth was full of food as he muttered to Ouyang Xiaoi. Immortal Phoenix restaurant? When the Immortal Phoenix restaurant was mentioned, Ouyang Xiaoi snorted and rolled her eyes in disdain. What? You're still looking down on Phoenix Goddess Restaurant? Yang Chun widened his eyes as he stared at Ouyang Xiaoi. Ouyang Xiaoi curled her lips and said, compared to the smelly boss's dishes, the Immortal Phoenix restaurant is just trash. You haven't even eaten Owner Boo's dishes before, and you still dare to say that you've seen the world. Let me ask you, have you ever eaten the fish head tofu soup that can increase the true energy in your body? Have you ever tasted sweet and sour ribs that can intoxicate you just by smelling the aroma? Have you ever eaten sparkling egg fried rice? Ouyang Xiaoi listed a few dishes of Fong Fong's little store in a row. As a waiter, she was naturally familiar with the names of these dishes and was able to name them as soon as she opened her mouth. Yang Chun stared blankly at Ouyang Xiaoi. He hadn't heard of any of these dishes before, but they sounded amazing. Could eating a meal actually increase one's cultivation? Humph. Awesome, right? I've eaten all of these dishes, Ouyang Xiaoi said proudly. Yang Chun shoved a mouthful of food into his mouth with his chopsticks and said as he chewed, "It sounds pretty good. Where's the store? When are you going to bring me there to take a look?" When Ouyang Xiaoi heard this, her eyes immediately turned and a smile appeared on her adorable face. She said to Yang Chun while grinning, "Let's go right now. These dishes aren't to my taste. I haven't eaten for an entire day." Right now, Yang Chun was dumbfounded. They were currently imprisoned. How could they get out? The guy spying on us is only a 5th grade battle king. With our cultivation levels, we should be able to catch him off guard and take care of him in an instant. At that time, we'll be able to escape, Ouyang Xiaoi said with bright eyes. Yang Chun raised his eyebrows. He suddenly became excited and nodded his head. Then, without saying anything, Ouyang Xiaoi fell onto the ground and started kicking her legs. She was crying and throwing a tantrum. Yang Chun was stunned by her acting skills. The guards heard the commotion and stepped into the room. They saw Ouyang Xiaoi sitting on the ground and kicking her legs. "What's wrong? Why are you throwing a tantrum?" The guard impatiently knitted his brows. These two brats were actually so restless. "She thinks the food is too disgusting. She said your chef is a pig," Yang Chun seriously said. The guard did not know whether to laugh or cry. He walked toward Ouyang Xiaoi's food, picked up some with his chopsticks, and smacked his lips. "The taste isn't bad." Yang Chun approached the guard and nodded. "I think it's not bad too, but she thinks the chef is a pig, so she doesn't want to eat the food here and wants to go outside." The guard had already sensed that something was wrong. In the next moment, true energy burst out from Yang Chun's body and wrapped around the guard's limbs. Even though the guard was a 5th grade battle king, he was still caught off guard by a sneak attack at such a close distance. Ouyang Xiaoi jumped up from the ground, waved her fist, and greeted the guard's face with a punch. The Ouyang family style was to take advantage of the enemy's weakness. Therefore, Ouyang Xiaoi's 3 or 4 consecutive punches all landed on the guard's face. The guard fell to the ground and fainted. Then, Ouyang Xiaoi pulled Yang Chun and jogged out of the small room where they were imprisoned. They sneakily snuck out of the mansion. It was a sunny day in the Imperial City. The sunlight pierced through the clouds and sprinkled down. It was rather bright and beautiful. When it shone on one's body, it felt warm and extremely comfortable. After Bu Fong finished serving the first wave of customers, the store once again regained its tranquility. Therefore, Bu Fong pulled a chair and sat in front of the store like he did a few days ago. Today, there was sunlight. The sunlight sprinkling down caused his entire body to feel warm and sleepy. This simple life was actually quite comfortable. "Smelly boss, save me." At the entrance of the alleyway, a heart-wrenching voice rang out. Bufang, who had just closed his eyes, could not help but open them and looked into the distance in puzzlement. There, the figures of two brats were madly running. Behind them were a few experts with powerful auras. They were very fast and were about to catch up to the two brats. Let's see where you can run to. A battle king took a step forward and directly grabbed Ouyang Xiaoyi. He lifted her up and sneered. They did not expect that the two canaries locked in the birdcage would actually escape and almost let them fly away. Do you King know who this great ant is? Be careful, or else I'll ask my grandpa to strip you naked and hang you on the walls of the imperial city. Ouyang Xiaoyi was very angry. The smelly boss's store was not far away, yet she was caught. The feeling of anxiously waiting made her want to go crazy. Smelly boss, save me. Blackie, save me. Therefore, Ouyang Xiaoyi yelled at the top of her lungs, hoping that Bufang would come out and save her. However, she felt that there was a higher chance that Blackie would save her. Blackie, who was lying on the ground, snorted. He opened his eyes and somewhat lazily yawned. He slightly stuck out his tongue and exhaled a mouthful of white gas. Who's calling your lord go? Blackie suspiciously scanned the surroundings with his eyes and quickly discovered Ouyang Xiaoyi, who was struggling at the entrance of the alleyway. Why is this girl calling your lord go for no reason? Doesn't she know that you, Lord Go, are very busy? Blackie lazily got up and slowly walked toward the entrance of the alleyway with cat-like steps. Bufang slowly walked out of the store and stood at the entrance, expressionlessly looking at the entrance of the alleyway. Blackie, save me. When Ouyang Xiaoyi saw the big black dog slowly walking over, her big eyes immediately lit up and she shouted. Yang Chun twitched his nose that was a little stiff from the cold. He puzzledly looked at the dark and somewhat plump big black dog in front of him. The few guards were also looking at Blackie with strange expressions. Did this girl think that a dog could save her from the hands of a few battle kings? Should they say that this girl was naive? Or naive? However, in the next instant, the large black dog who spoke human language gave these people a huge fright. Listen to the Lord go. Let go of that girl. Blackie's gentle voice sounded out of nowhere. Chapter 99. Beside the gate of heavenly mystery, the Crown Prince's palace. Inside the vast palace, the Crown Prince sat alone. His expression was solemn, but his eyes were filled with a myriad of thoughts. On the table in front of him were several secret letters. Zhao Mushing, that sly old fox. He was the one behind all of this. The Crown Prince's expression flickered as he picked up the secret letters on the table. The more he read, the angrier he became. He quickly crumpled the letter into a ball. If only Xushi was here. Ji Chang'an let out a long sigh. If Xushi was here, he would be able to give him a good idea, and he would not be in such a passive position. The sudden death of the emperor caught everyone off guard. If it was not for the fact that the news was accidentally leaked by a eunuch in the palace, who knew how long they would have been kept in the dark by the emperor. Capturing Ouyang Xiaoyi and Yang Chun. This Zhao Mushing sure has guts. However, it's not impossible for me to cooperate with him. If I agree, it would mean that I would have the support of the Ouyang and Yang families. That way, it would not be so easy for my second brother to overthrow me, even if he colluded with the sex. The prince muttered to himself. Then he unfolded the crumpled secret letter and carefully read it for a while. He seemed to have made a huge decision in his heart. What did you say? A few battle kings couldn't even watch over two battle spirit brats? Zhao Mushing lightly blew on the steam from the cup in his hand, and after taking a sip of tea, he calmly said. The face of a man in an embroidered robe in front of him suddenly turned extremely pale. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and fearfully said, My lord, it was my negligence. I have already sent people to bring them back, but what? Zhao Mushing indifferently asked as he continued to drink his tea. The man in the embroidered robe secretly glanced at Zhao Mushing before cautiously answering. The little princess of the Ouyang family escaped with the young duke to that mysterious store. Mysterious store? The one that has been the talk of the town recently. where even the emperor personally came. Zhao Muxing's hand that was drinking his tea suddenly froze as he asked in confusion. He had heard a little about that restaurant, but he did not know much about it. However, from the information he had gathered, the origin of this small restaurant was definitely not simple. A supreme beast and a puppet that can fight against a 7th grade battle saint? This store has an unusual background. Have you investigated it? Zhao Muxing asked. I did, but I couldn't find anything. The man in embroidered gowns said. It was precisely because of this that he was terrified, because Ouyang Xiaoyi and Yang Chun had run into the store. If they wanted to catch them again, they would have to go through the store. However, this store seemed to be very unusual. Humph. If you can't even find this out, what's the use of keeping you? Every year, I spend hundreds of thousands of crystals on your intelligence network, yet you can't even find information about a small restaurant? Zhao Muxing coldly glanced at the man and coldly snorted. That man was about to break out in cold sweat. Forget it. Perhaps this store is really mysterious. This continent is incomparably vast, and there are many unknown forces that we can't even imagine. It's not your fault that you can't find anything. However, you must bring back the girl from the Ouyang family and the young Marquis Yang. If you can't do it, you can do it yourself. In any case, I must see them, Zhao Muxing said. The man's expression turned ugly in an instant. Sir, but that store has a supreme beast guarding it. Moreover, that iron lump is not something that a mere 6th grade battle emperor like me can deal with. A supreme beast? Humph. You really believe this rumor? Do you really think that a supreme beast would be a spirit beast guarding the door of a small store? Not to mention a small store, even the most mysterious sect of the 10 great sects, the Celestial Arcanum sect, does not have this kind of background and confidence. Obviously, Zhao Muxing did not believe that a small store would have a supreme beast guarding it. Perhaps Xiao Meng and Eunuch Lian's failure was actually a beautiful mistake? They were just carelessly fooled by that dog. Zhao Muxing was very confident because he had seen a real 9th grade supreme beast and knew how terrifying that kind of existence was. How could it be a spirit beast guarding the door of a small store? This was completely unreliable. Zhao Muxing's indisputable attitude made the man in embroidered gown very sad. However, he could not voice out his bitterness, so he had to go. At this moment, he could only believe that his lord's guess was correct. There's actually such a strange dog in this world. It can actually speak. A 5th grade battle king stared at Blackie with a dumbfounded expression. He felt as if his entire world had been turned upside down. Yangshan also stared blankly at Blackie. It was his first time seeing Blackie, and he did not expect this dog to actually speak. Let go of that girl. Is this something a dog like you should say? Yang Chun was speechless. Ha ha, you fat dog. Are you planning to play the hero and save the damsel in distress? This is simply... The few battle kings were all laughing nonstop and could not stop at all. Bu Fong stood at the entrance of the store and could also hear these people's unstoppable laughter. However, his expression was indifferent, and a faint pity appeared in his eyes for these people. The battle kings who acted tough in front of Blackie were all dead. Thinking of this, Bu Fong could not help but say, "Lazy dog, go easy on them. Don't collapse the newly repaired floor again. If you repair it again, it will be troublesome." When Blackie heard Bu Fong's words, he immediately rolled his eyes and snorted. He was too lazy to pay attention to him. When the battle king who was holding on to Ouyang Xiaoyi saw this scene, he could not help but frown. He was somewhat vigilant. A restaurant in an alleyway, and a dog that could speak? Why did this information give him a sense of familiarity? To actually talk so much nonsense with a dog, I must be an idiot. This dog is so fat, I can just slaughter it and make into a dog meat hot pot. Delicious. Another battle king did not seem to mind. He coldly smiled, rolled up his sleeves, and walked toward Blackie. From his posture, it seemed like he was going to catch the dog. Blackie sincerely looked at the battle king with its doggy eyes, then tremblingly stretched out a dainty and exquisite dog paw. Now you know fear. Unfortunately, it's too late. Even if you act cute, it's useless. That Battle King immediately laughed heartily. However, in the next moment, Black's doggy paw lightly touched his body. The Battle King's laughter got stuck in his throat, and his entire body froze on the spot. What's going on? The Battle King, who was holding onto Ouyang Xiaoyi, immediately furrowed his brows and asked in puzzlement. However, just as he finished speaking, he felt a terrifying gust of wind whizzing past him. It was as if a figure had sped past him, causing his hair to flutter in the wind. Boom! A figure instantly pierced through more than half of the imperial city, piercing through countless houses and turning them into minced meat that piled up on the ground. "Oh, this way, I won't destroy the ground, woof," Black calmly said. A tyrannical might suddenly burst forth from its doggy eyes. In its eyes, that Battle King was just like an ant. At this moment, the Battle King, who was holding onto Ouyang Xiaoyi, finally remembered where he was, and his entire body began to tremble. This was a black-hearted store that had recently become famous within the imperial city, an alleyway guarded by a supreme beast. He originally thought that it was just a joke, but a doggy paw actually flicked the old man into minced meat. If anyone dared to say that this dog wasn't a supreme beast, then who would this daddy fight with? At this moment, the Battle King's intestines were green with regret. He never thought that these two brats would actually escape to this store. All of a sudden, the Battle King felt that his hand was empty. Ouyang Xiaoyi actually burst forth with true energy and stepped on his face. She broke free from his restraints and landed on the ground to escape. The Battle King's pupils shrank, and his heart suddenly felt a wave of terror. Then a cute furry doggy paw tapped on his stomach. It was a gentle tap. Chapter 100. Rumble. When Song Tao rushed to the entrance of the alleyway where the store was located, a gust of wind instantly whizzed past him, causing his body to instantly stiffen. He vaguely saw a miserable figure within the gust of wind. What happened? Song Tao confusedly looked behind him. Then, with a loud noise, the entire ground began to tremble. Monstrous smoke and dust slowly rose from the ruins in the distance. Song Tao, who was standing at the entrance of the alleyway, felt a chill run down his spine. "Oh, not bad. This saved me a lot of trouble." Bufang nodded in satisfaction. At the very least, the recently repaired limestone floor in the alleyway was not damaged by Black's paw again. My lord, hurry up and run. That dog is too scary." While Song Tao was confused, the two Battle Kings were so frightened that they scrambled to escape. When they saw Song Tao, they spoke with fear in their eyes. Song Tao's heart sank. As expected, the mission had failed. Even the four Battle Kings were unable to capture Ouyang Xiaoyi and Yangchen. How was he going to report back now? Song Tao was unwilling to leave just like that. So he walked toward the alleyway and faced the terrifying big black dog that could send Battle Kings flying with a flick of its paw. Blackie indifferently glanced at Song Tao. When it saw the latter's vigilant expression, it immediately rolled its eyes and rolled its eyes. Striding like a cat, it lazily returned to the entrance of the store and lay down to rest. Ouyang Xiaoyi pulled Yang Chun into the store, completely ignoring Song Tao, who was standing at the entrance of the alleyway. A gust of cold wind blew past, bringing with it waves of chilliness. "Young brat, this is the smelly boss's store that I told you about. Even though this boss isn't much of a person, the taste of his dishes is indescribable," Ouyang Xiaoyi said to Yang Chun after pulling Yang Chun into the store. Yang Chun looked around the store. A trace of disdain immediately appeared on his immature face. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "This small and cramped store? The decorations are ordinary. The customers are also ordinary. How could there be any decent delicacies? You aren't lying to me, are you?" Yang Chun actually didn't believe such sincere word from me. Ouyang Xiaoyi immediately became anxious. She stared at Yang Chun with her big eyes and said, "Why would I lie to you? If I really lied to you, then this great ant will make the smelly boss apologize to you." At the side, Bufang was slightly taken aback, and a trace of doubt flashed across his face. "If you're lying, why am I the one apologizing?" What logic? Humph. Do you think this young Marquis will care about his apology? Yangchen glanced at Bufang and smiled in disdain. You're just a chef. Do you think you can ascend to the heavens? You ignorant fellow, you will soon know what a stupid thing you have said. Ouyang Xiaoi coldly smiled, then turned around and said to Bufang, "Smelly boss, give me a plate of sweet and sour ribs. He's going to die of hunger." Yang Chun curled his lips and glanced at the menu hanging on the wall. Then his small eyes shrunk to the size of a black sesame seed. This price is marked incorrectly, right? Why was it calculated according to crystals? Do you think these dishes are elixirs? After looking at the price of the dishes, Yang Chun could not help but ridicule. Bufang was almost automatically immune to this kind of ridicule. He was too lazy to bother with it. You can ridicule me all you want. It's not like I will lose a piece of meat from your ridicule. If you want to taste the dishes, you still have to order them. Won't you still have to bow down to the price of my dishes? That was how confident he was when he had the skills. Song Tao was very unwilling, so he also stepped into the store. The first thing he saw was Yang Chun, who was coldly snorting in disdain. His eyes slightly lit up. Young Marquis Yang, this is a very important person. I must capture him. What dish do you want to eat? Look at the menu yourself. Before Song Tao could say anything, a cold and aloof voice rang in his ears. Bufang expressionlessly looked at Song Tao and said while pointing at the menu behind him. Song Tao was taken aback. Then he took a glance at the menu. His nostrils slightly widened and hot air whizzed out. Damn, isn't this a robbery? The black-hearted store was indeed worthy of its reputation. However, he was also unwilling to leave just like that. The fair and tender Ouyang Loli was not far away, and that Sundry Yangchan was also standing in front of him. If Song Tao left just like that, it would be no different from giving up on 2 pieces of fragrant red braised meat when he was about to starve to death. Boss, give me a serving of egg-fried rice. Song Tao endured the heartache and ordered a dish of egg-fried rice that cost 1 crystal. His heart felt like it was bleeding. It was not easy to earn crystals these days. When Ouyang Xiaoi heard Song Tao's order, she immediately disdainfully glanced at him and disdainfully snorted. Smelly boss, hurry up and cook my sweet and sour ribs that cost 50 crystals each. As the little princess of the Ouyang family, she would not lack crystals even if she lacked anything. What about you? What do you want to eat? Bufang looked at Yangchun and asked, since they have ordered, then give me a serving of ice hard jade urn wine. Yangchun said while raising his chin. Bufang glanced at him and curled the corner of his mouth. He indifferently said, kids can't drink. Yangchun's body suddenly stiffened. His small eyes widened as he stared straight at Bufang. Bufang expressionlessly looked back at him. Not long after, Yangchun was defeated. How infuriating. Forget it, forget it. Give me a serving of red braised meat. All right, please wait a moment. Bufang nodded before turning around and stepping into the kitchen. Song Tao carefully found a seat and sat down. His gaze could not help but look around. At the entrance of the kitchen, he saw a mechanical figure. Was it the puppet from this black-hearted store that could fight his 7th-grade battle saint head-on? Xiao Bai's plump head turned around mechanically. Its red mechanical eyes met Song Tao's small eyes, scaring the latter into hurriedly averting his gaze. Oomph. If the taste of this store's dishes is really bad, I will definitely ruthlessly look down on them. How dare they charge such a high price when their dishes taste terrible? Also, I will advertise this to the entire imperial city and let everyone know that this is a scam. Yang Chun arrogantly said. Ouyang Xiaoi rolled her big eyes. She could not be bothered with this arrogant little boy. Right now, she only wanted to eat the smelly boss's dishes. She had not eaten for an entire day and was starving. She had even lost weight. Yang Chun was still chattering away. However, the rich aroma of meat quickly drifted out from the kitchen. The aroma of meat slowly drifted over like silk brushing past one's face. It gave off a feeling of authenticity. Ouyang Xiaoi raised her delicate nose and fiercely inhaled the aroma of meat. Her face was filled with happiness. This was the smell. This was the smell of the smelly boss. Not long after, a figure walked out from the darkness of the kitchen. Bufong's slender fingers were holding onto a porcelain bowl. On top of the bowl was an orange-red sweet-in sour ribs that was overflowing with color. Steaming white steam and a rich aroma were emitted from the bowl and instantly rushed into the kitchen. Ouyang Xiaoyi was already a little impatient. Her big eyes were fixated on Bufong. Bufong placed the sweet and sour ribs in front of Ouyang Xiaoyi, patted her head, and indifferently said, "Your sweet and sour ribs, eat slowly." Then, Bufong turned around and returned to the kitchen to continue cooking other dishes. The fragrance of the sweet and sour ribs was intoxicating. Just the fragrance alone caused Yang Chun, who had been chattering away at the side, to become sluggish on the spot. His pair of eyes were fixated on the orange-red meat. Even Song Tao could not help but be attracted. However, he was more concerned about how to get these two little fellows out of this store. Song Tao guiltily thought as he glanced at Xiao Bai when the latter's mechanical eyes once again turned around. Chapter 101. After eating a mouthful of egg-fried rice, Song Tao was completely immersed in it. He continuously scooped, chewed, and ate. He was completely conquered by the delicious aroma of the dish and had completely forgotten the purpose of coming to the store. Delicious! Song Tao put down the plate and licked his lips. He did not expect the egg-fried rice to be so delicious. One serving was not enough. It was a pity that the sweet and sour ribs actually cost 50 crystals. If he ordered this sweet and sour ribs, the 50 crystals would flow out of his pocket and Song Tao would not even have the appetite to eat. Inside the store, the unsatisfied Yang Chun ordered a few more dishes and ate happily. The little girl, on the other hand, ordered a hot fish head tofu soup and happily sipped the fish soup. At this moment, Yang Chun was already captivated by the intoxicating aroma emitted by the sweet and sour ribs. He could not even shift his gaze away. The orange-red luster of the sweet and sour ribs was really too tempting. He unconsciously felt an emptiness in his stomach and could not help but want to try one. After leaving the store, Song Tao did not go far. Instead, he found a comfortable spot a few meters away from the entrance of the alleyway and squatted down. He did not dare to make a move inside the store, but once he was outside, he could instantly capture the two kids and then leave. At least, he could not give that supreme dog the chance to make a move. Song Tao was immediately dumbfounded when he heard this. He, a dignified 6th-grade battle emperor, was actually treated as a stinky beggar? Did he have to be so miserable? Song Tao was slightly taken aback. Then, he recalled the rules on the menu and immediately felt a headache coming on. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that the reason he came to the store was not to eat, but to capture Yang Chun and Ouyang Xiaoyi. The two of them had no intention of leaving. I already said that the smelly boss's dishes are definitely the most delicious. Yang Chun swallowed the red braised meat into his mouth. The slight sweetness along with the rich aroma of the meat instantly invaded his entire mouth. It was as if Yang Chen's entire body was wrapped in the aroma of the meat. The first layer of fat venison was oily, but not greasy. It was springy and had an excellent texture. When it came to the lean meat that was supposed to be tight, it was soft, tender, and smooth beyond Yang Chen's imagination. Do you want to eat it? Ouyang Xiaoyi used a pair of chopsticks to pick up a piece of sweet and sour ribs that was stained with orange sauce, and slightly waved it in front of Yang Chun as she spoke with a light smile. As a result, Yang Chun continued to pick up the meat with his chopsticks. He couldn't stop at all. When Bufong walked out of the kitchen with the egg-fried rice, the bowl of braised pork was finished. Baji, baji. Ouyang Xiaoyi was amused as she looked at Yang Chun, who was forcing himself not to look at the sweet and sour ribs with his eyes closed. She couldn't stop laughing in her heart. Since you can't see, I'll use my voice to tempt you. Although the price of the egg-fried rice was not expensive and the cooking method was simple, it was undeniable that this simple dish emitted the strongest fragrance because the egg itself was very fragrant when it was stir-fried. Yang Chen's eyes were fixated on the red braised pork in front of him. The meat was as transparent as agate, and under the illumination of the light, it emitted a rosy luster. It was too beautiful to behold, so exquisite that it was like a work of art, making people unable to bear to eat it. In his heart, he was wondering if he should order a serving of sweet and sour ribs, but he had already ordered the red braised pork, so he was a little hesitant. In the end, he gave up and decided to try the taste of the red braised pork first. However, in order to resist the temptation of that girl, Yang Chen forced himself to turn his head away from Ouyang Xiaoyi, who was happily eating the sweet and sour ribs. "Owner Bu, give me another serving of egg fried rice." Faced with such a delicacy, the naturally stingy Song Tao chose to compromise and decided to order another serving of egg fried rice. It was just a piece of meat, but it completely conquered Yang Chen. The smile on Ouyang Xiaoyi's eyes became even more curved. She happily picked up a piece of sweet and sour ribs and stuffed it in her mouth, chewing continuously with her cheeks bulging. However, in the end, the appetite in his stomach still won over the appreciation of beauty. Yang Chen grabbed the chopsticks and carefully picked up a piece of red braised pork. The chopsticks slightly exerted force, and the red braised pork was squeezed until a slightly transparent, oily juice flowed out and the fragrance wafted over. No one could resist the fragrance of this egg-fried rice. Not Song Tao, not Yang Chen. Under the temptation of the fragrance of the sweet and sour ribs, Yang Chen, who was struggling to endure, finally waited for Bu Fong to walk out of the kitchen. Looking at the plate of red braised pork in Bu Fong's hands, which was emitting hot steam like a red agate, Yang Chen became excited. To Yang Chen, this was simply the most unbearable torture. It was even more unbearable than letting him practice fist techniques 10 times in the snow. "Your red braised pork, please enjoy your meal," Bu Fong calmly said. Compared to Yang Chen's impatience, Bu Fong was neither hurried nor slow. The miserable fate of his two subordinates who were sent flying was still vivid in his mind. He did not dare to let that supreme dog make a move. Heavy snowflakes unknowingly floated down from the sky, swaying as they fell. The imperial city was once again covered in a layer of silver frost. "Let's change the dish. The egg-fried rice has already been ordered. You're not allowed to order anymore." Bu Fong indifferently glanced at him and said, "If you want to eat, go order it yourself. It's mine." Ouyang Xiaoyi looked at Yang Chen's appearance of gulping saliva and was delighted in her heart. She stuffed the sweet and sour ribs in her mouth with an appearance of her evil scheme succeeding, and her big eyes squinted like two cute crescent moons. Song Tao, who was at the side, had been observing the two. However, looking at the sweet and sour ribs in front of Ouyang Xiaoyi, he could not help but swallow his saliva as well. It was truly too fragrant. It was said that the black-hearted store was a scam, and their dishes were outrageously expensive, but there was a reason for it to be so expensive. Song Tao, who had long been tormented to the point of suffering, did not say a word as he picked up the blue and white porcelain spoon and started to scoop up the rice. Once he scooped up the rice, the aroma of the egg and rice instantly erupted. White steam rose up and enveloped Song Tao's face, causing him to be completely intoxicated. Under the dumbstruck gaze of Yang Chen and Ouyang Xiaoyi, the bowl of egg-fried rice was cleanly eaten in a short while. Not a single grain of rice was left on the plate. At the entrance of the alleyway, Song Tao was squatting motionlessly. His body was already covered in a thick layer of snow, and when he slightly shook his body, snow would fall off. Blackie, who was lying at the entrance, rolled its eyes. It was speechless at Song Tao's actions. Was this human stupid? Bu Fong looked at Song Tao with a face full of puzzlement. Didn't this bro say he wanted to order dishes? Yang Chen was very angry. He knew that this brat definitely did not have good intentions. However, he had to admit that the aroma was really fragrant. He had never smelled such an intoxicating aroma of meat before. "Your egg-fried rice, please enjoy." Bu Fong placed the egg-fried rice that seemed to be emitting a golden brilliance in front of Song Tao as he indifferently said. Qian Bao, who was wearing a brocade robe and a fox fur cloak, walked to the entrance of the alleyway with a chef from the Immortal Phoenix restaurant. Coincidentally, he saw Song Tao hiding and shivering at the entrance of the alleyway. Qian Bao immediately waved his hand in disgust. Where did this stinky beggar come from? Scram, don't block the way. Therefore, Song Tao resisted the temptation and carefully took out a crystal from his pocket. With a face full of reluctance, he placed it on the table, then turned around and left. It's really delicious. Yang Chun muttered in a daze as he looked at the plate of red braised meat in disbelief. There was actually such a delicious red braised meat in this world. The difference between the Immortal Phoenix restaurant's red braised spirit pork and this dish was like the difference between heaven and earth. Song Tao also suspected that he was stupid. However, he had no choice. In order to complete the mission, he could only make such a fearless sacrifice. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.